Yes. All right, welcome everyone to episode 4 of Red Planets. Let's get everyone on screen.
Oh baby.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, incredible. Hi everyone.
Incredible.
Hello.
Forgive me for my appearance. I just got done with a workout. If you are just watching my stream, you watched me do my workout. I'm trying to get a big butt. So this is it's kind of awkward now.
Yeah, you smashed it. No, you did great. I was watching.
I'm actually someone in my community is kind enough to they're like a trainer and they've been writing me like this workout and I'm super excited about it. Yeah. No, it's really awesome. So
finally a good chatter.
Finally.
It's
right.
about you're telling me. I thought I would die never seeing the likes of a productive good chatter, but here we are. So shout out to Chatchless for being so kind. So today, chat, we have a guest joining us in about an hour. So until then, we're gonna.
Are we episode 3 or episode 4?
Oh,
Four.
Four.
Thank you.
We're good.
Oh, someone, yeah,
Way to undermine my authority in public. This is why we have our private chat.
Yeah.
This is
Sorry
where
to
we have the central
mansplain.
planning
It's a little,
Episodes
I was gonna say it's a
here.
little sexist that you're like
Tim.
publicly trying to put me in my place by telling me what number episode we're on, but that's fine. Let's talk about
This
it.
is why we have the
I'm like
central planning committee.
West Elm Caleb of.
No,
fucking
oh my
Red
god.
Planet.
Jesus Christ.
West Oakenton, yeah.
Oh no.
So chat today. Tim is wearing nice stuff. Every day in the Red Planet I was also wanted to wear a dress and just today didn't work out just because whatever. So please forgive me for my
Because
appearance.
every other time, everyone's always, dressed up, and then it was
I've never dressed up. I've never dressed
That's true.
up once.
Mules in a t-shirt and chain every time.
Every single time.
It's normally my kind of uniform as well.
No, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you, Mule. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you're a slob or that you're making the place less classy by you being there. Don't ever. Okay, so I'm saying just don't ever let anyone.
I'll never
It sounds like
don't
you're
let
kind
those
of
people
saying
get to
that
you.
right now.
No, I'll never look at my aesthetic. I'm in a trash dump. You know what I mean? This is what I bring to the table, really.
So so
Well,
welcome everybody, and we will be getting into the topic of protests and riot tactics. And now I will shut up because I think Sophie wants to say something.
I wanted to say we got a news section. We always start with a news section. That's just little announcements that we want to do. It's okay if anybody else has anything that they didn't put in the notes already. But I just wanted to say that last time we read through an article of all the horrible shit that the Tories want to put through in the UK in 2022. And one of the biggest ones that we wanted to talk about, because it's kind of the biggest hot topic right now in the UK, is the Police Crimes Sentencing in Courts Bill. And it's actually been mostly voted down. So that's some good news.
Oh, cool.
Wait, chat, press 1 if you remember what we were talking about last week. Who here remembers? We always want to check in with chat.
That's good.
Press 1 if you remember this horrific, the whole, all the things we read, those are all just ridiculously horrible. Ridiculously horrible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good memory from chat, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Nice.
So if you need a refresher, basically in the UK, they're trying to get away with sneaking these pieces of legislation across that essentially the crux of it is making it illegal to protest
really.
anything that the government does, essentially.
It's a vague definition so they could catch as many things as possible, right?
But
Right.
the thing, it's important to note there are two sides to the bill. One is taking away our human right to protest, but the other one is about criminalizing trespass, and that is going to be used against Gypsy Romany travelers massively. And so what's happened is the bill went through. And so the way our parliament works is with the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons is elected. I mean, we'll say we have all the problems that any other democracy fucking has when it comes to electing MPs. But then there's a House of Lords. They are not elected at all. And the wildest, wackest fucking thing that's going on in the UK right now is that even though the House of Lords, which is just inherited titles, and they get to vote on our laws, which is a really fucked thing, which in general, in principle, I'm completely against. The Tories have a supermajority in the House of Commons right now. So most of the time when terrifying legislation gets defeated, it's because the lords are the ones stopping it, which is like
wild. Like
just
to even try and comprehend how that's a thing. These people
like how is that
not
still
only
a system?
Not only like have they inherited it, but like people can be given peerages to sit in the House of Lords.
Yeah, there was a whole cash for peerages scandal under Blair, right? Yeah. There's been like 3 attempts at horrific anti-trans legislation with stuff to do with prisons, especially, that again the House of Lords stopped every time. Like I'm sounding like I'm bigging up the House of Lords right now. Like I hate those guys.
It's
they
terrible.
suck.
Yeah, they suck. Yeah,
but they have acted as like an accidental like last line of defense against this shit a few times recently and this time. But I don't think that they voted. So they voted out all of the shit to do with protest. They stopped basically all the shit to do with protest, all the extra powers, the locking on amendment, which was like, Mule, you talked about this last time, right?
Yeah, it's like they were trying to make an amendment where if you had something on your person that could be used to attach yourself to something, then you would be charged with
like a bike lock or something.
Yeah, it's attempted to disrupt whatever. Yeah.
Right, and they voted that stuff out, but I don't think they voted. I need to fact check this actually, but I don't think they voted out the GRT stuff, and so naturally, like, loads of people are celebrating. Hooray! We did it. We stopped all the terrifying protest stuff. But I don't think they've stopped the shit that's genocidal against GRT people. So that's pretty fucked, honestly. And it's just a huge blind spot for our liberals and our progressives. So it's like something that they're not really going to notice or care about.
I want to point out 2 things about what we're talking about. One is, was it Ghosts that just linked this article? Where? I think Ghost said we had one of these, we as an Americans had one of those in Colorado as of last year. Retaliation against an elected official. Basically makes a credible threat or commits an act of harassment or an act of harm or injury upon a person or property as retaliation or retribution against a judge.
Right.
And this could be like, say, Kyle Rittenhouse's judge giving absolutely over the top, obvious preferential treatments to white supremacy and being a white supremacist. Me going on Twitter, I'm gonna imagine this could be used to be like
ratioing the shit.
Yeah, I ratioed the judge, so now I'm going to go to prison for terrorism or something.
Well, we mentioned the online safety bill last time, but the online safety bill, out of the list of things, one of the proposals for the online safety bill is if you initiate a pile-on on social media, you could be charged with something.
Yeah,
like literally ratioing could be illegal in the UK by the end of the year.
Which means that like when I ratio people, it's like, that's like, I'm like really doing something then. Like I thought it was just nothing, but apparently that's like real activism.
We'll probably touch on this more next week in the non-reformist reforms and Medicare for All with FD Signifier discussion. But this is all part of a wider pattern of neoliberal governments becoming like way, way, way more authoritarian, where they're just trying to crack down on absolutely everything. Mildred actually commented on this, right? In a way that kind of gives you hope in a bit of a cynical kind of weird way, is like, actually, if you think about it, that's because shit's falling apart for them. Like they wouldn't be doing that if they weren't terrified. But
it's all in preparation for things like Climate Behemoth and Climate Leviathan.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know. That's kind of why they focused on the attacking, making it illegal to save refugees.
Yes, exactly. They're hardening the borders, especially. That's exactly it. But yeah, that's the news. Is the House of Lords basically defeated the bill we were most worried about, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Your Honor, this terrorist posted ratio plus L on Twitter. Plus you're white.
Plus you're white.
So that's a racist, not only a terrorist attack, but also is a hateful racist attack.
Hate crime.
You know what? Martin Luther King would never have stood for this.
I wanna just point out, like, all the jokes you're making, you think are gonna. I'm sorry, like all the jokes you're making, you think are ridiculous, and I'm just gonna counter it every time with real UK laws that are being proposed. So there is stuff coming through at the moment which is about making misogyny a hate crime, but they are sneaking in making misandry a hate crime alongside it. So literally, L plus ratio plus white man plus nobody asked could be 2 counts of violation of UK rights for misandry and initiating a
Well,
pylon.
Sophie, isn't this good news? Because sure, we'll get rid of all the misandry, whatever, but all misogyny will be addressed, right? So surely this will get rid of the misogyny.
There will be no more misogyny. Yeah,
it
you're
won't,
right.
It certainly won't be used just to bolster.
Finally be equal.
Just to bolster one side.
It certainly won't be used by any feminists claiming that trans women existing is a form of misogyny to send trans women to jail.
Absolutely not.
I don't think it'll. No, yeah, it's not going to happen.
Well, I feel better.
All right, that's the news. There you go. We gave you the cheery, fun, happy, cool time news. Yay!
Yay.
What are we chatting about this week, pals?
We're chatting about more incredibly cool, happy stuff. We're talking about riots and protests.
Yeah,
how to be prepared. Yeah.
Yes. Mule, do you want to hit us with the introduction I put in the notes?
I will hit you with that introduction. Absolutely.
Clueless, thank you for the raid. Thank you so much, Clueless. Sorry.
You're on about the bit that you're on about. Right, I know what you're on about. Okay, so before you can organize, thank you, Sophie. Before you can organize, you have to know how to mobilize. You need to know how to exist safely at protests or even riots, even if that isn't what you're here for. It's entirely possible that you could find yourself caught up in protests and riots as the political climate and the actual climate heats up. It's very, very, very likely that these things are going to become more frequent. And this is just something that I'm adding into this. More weird, like, you know, we're like we're seeing people protesting things like anti-vax stuff now, which is weird anyway, because there's like a mishmash of people in those protests, like liberals and leftists and
some pretty wild alliances forming.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why this show is important.
Yeah, I mean, even exactly. Think about anti-vax protests. Like when we're saying like you might get caught up in something, it might not be like a cool protest that you're like, yeah, fuck the state for this thing or that thing. Like you might just be trying to get home from the shops, as it happened to so many people. You're just trying to get home from town, and there's a bajillion maskless fucking gammon people just spewing COVID everywhere, and some of them are throwing fireworks at cops, and like they're doing all sorts of crazy shit. And you're just in the middle of that, and whoops, you got kettled. You know, it could happen.
And this has happened like all throughout the George Floyd sort of protests around the states. There were like heaps of cases of people just walking through town and getting, like arrested by police and being like, you're part of this. What are you doing? Whatever, like that. And they're just like, I'm literally coming home from like work or the library or something like that, and there's just nothing they can say to prove to the police or whatever. So it's like, there's plenty of situations where you might have no idea what's going on, but you're part of it now, and and you should probably know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like we got a guest coming on Anansi's library. They make incredible videos on YouTube, but they also I know from talking to them about this, have a lot of experience tangling with the cops at protests and riots, and they're incredibly knowledgeable. I was kind of joking around about it before with the other hosts that like they're going to come on and just fucking school us, but they copied and pasted their notes into our notes document, and they just put in like 15 pages.
There's so much. There's so much. Chat.
It's very good. It's very good.
You got to get your brains ready today, chat. Get them ready to receive info, because there's a lot of it.
All right.
Are you prepared, Chat?
So, yeah. We need to know. We need to know those minds are open.
Let's see some Peppo G's. Let's see some Peppo G's or Peepo G's, however you want to pronounce it. And by the way, now that we have a moment to thank Clueless on VHS, thank you, Clueless, for the raid. Clueless is a really cool like lefty streamer that is super fucking sweet and super fun and just a cool fucking person. So I appreciate you rating, and if anyone from Clueless's stream is unaware of what we're doing here, my name is Bad Bunny. I do like a stream outside of this, but every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific for about 3 hours, we recently started a show called Red Planet, which is what you're watching right now, and it's me and 3 other hosts, and we discuss basically the show is based on the premise that capitalism has failed, communism is coming, it's inevitable, and how do we get there from the decaying carcass of capitalism crumbling around us? How do we most efficiently and as safely and like best get from there to communism? So it's less about like, we're not doing any like debates. We're not doing any sort of like, ask us any shitty question about like, prove to me that capitalism is actually, we're not doing any of this shit. We're assuming that everyone here is already in agreement with certain base ideals, and that we're all like have the shared goal of arriving at communism. And so that's kind of what the show is based on. Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah,
Right,
so welcome to the stream. And chat. No, yeah, these are
Riz.
for the record. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, never mind. Yeah,
What?
good. Nothing.
Never mind.
Don't worry about it.
So our guest is going to join us in a little bit. We have some notes we could get through before that. Obviously, if anyone else has chat to chat about, do it. But we also have Tim's video we're going to watch through.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, should we do that first?
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
Good idea, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
First we need. Do we have our tweet up? Make sure I get that up.
Yep, I tweeted it.
Oh yeah,
I'll
thank you.
Drop
We
you a
got a
link to Tim's
tweet.
video
Oh my
as well.
god. I'm forgetting everything
As you can
today.
tell, chat, we're a really organized operation here. That's why the FBI is paying us so much money to run
That's
this
right.
stream. Because we do it better than anybody else.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, Nicole, I've linked you the thing in Shadowy Cabal.
Okay, cool.
What was I gonna do?
And this is. Oh yeah, I love this video. Actually, I think we watched this
It's a
on my
really
stream
good
a while
video.
ago. It's a Tim video, chat. It's one of Conquest of Dread's videos, so it's gonna be all
That's
cool and sexy and shit. Basically everything you're not, chat. It's gonna be that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Deep.
Chat's crying right now. Look at them.
Literally crying.
It's
Literally
weeping.
crying.
Coping and seething.
Seething,
right.
coping, crying, shitting, pissing.
Coming. Yeah, it's all
Coming.
happening.
Okay.
It's a tidal wave of bodily fluids in chat.
Yeah.
Tim, you got any remarks to introduce the video, or should we just dive in?
Yeah, I don't know. I made this. This is a while back now. I kind of made it when there was a lot of like kind of protests kicking off around the world. I can't remember if I made it before or after the whole like George Floyd stuff kicked off. I think it was maybe after. I can't remember, but there was other stuff happening as well. And I kept seeing a lot of stuff, on social media, people talking about like, oh, we were down here and we got kettled or whatever, and other people being like, what does that mean or whatever. And I was kind of this was around the time I wanted to pivot my channel and my content in general just to being more towards less like kind of like media analysis stuff and more like kind of real world kind of like things that might be like things that might be a lot more kind of pertinent with what's going on. Not that other stuff is less pertinent or whatever like that, but it's just like where I wanted to take my focus.
My video about the Matrix sequels is pretty important to the political climate going on right now. I don't want to leave that unsaid.
I just felt like and there's plenty of people that were doing like kind of more stuff like that. I mean, like yourself, that were kind of nailing it in a way that I didn't feel like I could. So I kind of shifted more over to this stuff. So this was the first, I think, the first movie the first video that I started making more like focusing on things that like you might be like, oh shit, what is a kettle or something like that, and it would come up, and then kind of something short, it's only a couple minutes that you could just get in there and just like learn about basically like this is what it is. These are some things you can do. It's not like exhaustive. There's stuff that I definitely thought about afterwards that I was like, oh, I should have mentioned this. Or even people in the comments brought up other cool stuff as well. So we'll talk about that later, I guess, probably once Anansi gets here. But that's it.
As a quick check-in, chat, before we watch this video, the video is called How to Survive and Thrive in a Hypothetical Dystopian Street Battle. Kettling. How many of you know what kettling is? Don't Google it. How many of you press 1 if you know what kettling is, and press 0 if you do not know what kettling is?
I know one. Guys, I can tell you. I know it.
Okay,
so everyone else though, right?
We can't do decimal points. You know, chat's just always trying to get credit for just showing up.
3 know what it is. That's not.
Okay, so it looks like, learn 2020. So it looks like I don't know, like 30-40% of you don't know what it is, which is like a nice decent chunk of you that will be now exposed to this idea and will be.
There are other names for it as well. So
can I just ask a second one to chat?
Sure.
0 if you don't know, and 1 if you do know. Any kind of plan to deal with kettling, because that's what we're going to see in this video just now.
If you can't, do you know what to do in the case of being kettled? If you don't, press 0. If you do, press 1.
This is funny. I'm recognizing some people in chat, and some of them are people who I know about their kind of street cred with organizing and stuff, and I'm like seeing them hit 1, and I'm like, yeah, of course you fucking do.
Fucking bragging. Get out of here.
No competing. We're not competing.
Look at these grass touches.
I know. Can't believe it.
Pavement touches is probably it.
Akira gave me some ideas on how to deal with kettling. What, using your brain to blow up a tank?
Turn into a big fleshy fetus and just everything in town.
Okay, that's mad because I literally watched Akira last night.
Jumping on my motorbike with my lead pipe.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll do it.
Beating up a clown.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the video. Enough malarkey, as my hero Joe Biden would say. Enough with the malarkey. All right.
Jesus.
Kia ora, Tefano. Welcome to my new mini-series, How to Survive and Thrive in a Hypothetical Dystopian Street Battle. In these videos, we'll be going over practical advice a hypothetical citizen might need in a riot situation or a general state of civil unrest. We'll be going over plenty of different topics, but I'll be keeping each video short and focused in an effort to make them easier to navigate. The first subject we're going to cover is one of the most common tactics employed by police in large-scale protests. It's called kettling. This is a technique everyone should become familiar with, as it's used by police and military all over the planet. Also referred to as a box-in, pocket, or trap and detain by modern police and military, it's an evolution of a timeless military strategy used all over the planet. Most notoriously probably in World War II, in which the Germans called it the Kiel und Kessel tactic. Kettling is when a group of people are corralled into an enclosed area and held there, whether by physical barriers like pre-existing walls and terrain, temporary barriers like fences, or a wall of hypothetical state-sanctioned stormtroopers. Once inside the area designated as a kettle, the official law enforcement position is generally that protesters will be released in small groups to slowly diffuse and de-escalate the situation, like a valve releasing pressure from a kettle. But in practice, this rarely happens. Instead, we often see police slowly applying pressure and shrinking the kettled area to force an escalation or to enact mass arrest. While a group remains kettled, they can also be denied access to resources like water, bathrooms, and medical attention, which is why in many places, incidents of kettling have later been found to be unlawful. So it's worth knowing if there are any rulings on this in the area of your hypothetical protest before heading out. But unlawful or not, you'll probably find that most police forces aren't too scared of a fine or lawsuit down the track if it means they can put down a protest that threatens the status quo they're employed to maintain. However, in some areas, police are even required to allow protesters access to water, bathrooms, and medical aid upon request. And even though they'll most likely deny access to all of the above,
I just wanted to say, it's a funny thing. Tim's hypothetical dystopian cyberpunk street battle framing is part of the inspiration for some of the ways that we do Red Planet. That's part of the ways that I was like, interesting.
There's a lot of people in the chat saying, oh yeah, this is, you know, something that happened to us, or like, you know, like other people saying like, oh yeah, I've heard of being boxed in and stuff like that.
Right.
There's yeah, like there's, if you've been to one of these kind of situations, you probably, you know, you might, after seeing this or after being familiar with the concept, you probably be like, oh shit, that's exactly what they were trying to do to us.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's,
Yeah,
it's always really like validating to know that like you weren't just like losing your mind when you saw cops do this, because they will gaslight you as well as tear gas you, but they'll also gaslight you after they tear gas you in this situation by being like, no, you were aggressive, we had to. It's like, no, this is like a thing that you do. It's like a it's like a systemic the thing we're watching.
It's cathartic, right? Because it's just like, you know, the like you say, it's they abuse the public, and then it's like feels good to know that other people actually know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, should we carry on?
Yeah, let's go back in.
However, in some areas, police are even required to allow protesters access to water, bathrooms, and medical aid upon request. And even though they'll most likely deny access to all of the above, you should always know your rights for any leverage that you can get.
Jesus fucking Christ, this video.
Being able to identify possible kettle points is crucial to avoiding, which is why knowledge of the area is important. This is how small groups of local protesters have managed to hold out against overwhelming numbers from police forces and right-wing extremist groups all over the world. Things you should look out for include tunnels, bridges, and narrow streets. But a sufficiently resourced department could potentially deploy these strategies anywhere. So the best thing is to know your surroundings, and if your protest has any form of organized leadership, they need to communicate clearly and have multiple different routes and contingency plans. Keep in mind that police will sometimes set up a fake kettle in a suboptimal location in order to steer protesters away from it and into an ambush or strategically more advantageous position. A suboptimal kettle location could be anything from a busy intersection with plenty of street and pedestrian traffic to somewhere too close to a building or facility that could be a possible target for protesters. If you find yourself in a kettle, the best thing you can do is remain calm and coordinate with those around you. Most of the time, these situations are going to be a waiting game, and like any kind of siege, supplies are important. So you need to know if anyone around you has any special needs to be aware of. This could be anything from food, water and sunblock to medical needs like insulin and Ventolin. Going back to World War II and the Kiel und Kessel, the name Kessel fever was given to the kind of intense psychological stress felt by the people trapped inside one of these maneuvers, which led to people not only escalating the violence against their captors, but sometimes turning on each other in desperation, which is why it's important to look out for each other and keep morale up in these situations. In a war zone, breaking a kettle is an extremely difficult task, but if you're unable to wait it out or are under heavy fire, the key to breaking these maneuvers is generally to search the perimeter of the kettle for weak points, whether it's from the encircling force being spread too thin, possibly because you've created a diversion somewhere else, or to exploit some kind of feature of the terrain to your advantage, which is obviously where local knowledge is important. So, if you can find a weak spot, you then need to focus all of your efforts in that single spot to break through and either escape or reopen and maintain a supply line. That is, if you don't have any additional forces to help you by flanking the encircling army from the outside. Now, hopefully you'll never have to actually use any of these tactics in a war zone, but many protests have been hamstrung because people weren't able to spot these traps until it was too late. So hopefully, now that you know what a kettle is and how to spot one, that won't be you, because you'll be keeping an eye out for yourself and for your comrades.
So fucking
better living, everyone. This has been Tim from Conquest of Dread with how to survive and thrive in a hypothetical dystopian street.
Are you planning to make this a series, Tim?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I'm planning on doing more. I'm not, like, yeah, like, I've got a bunch of other ones that I think could fit into this kind of series, but as opposed to like making like a whole run of them, I think just, every now and then I might just revisit this kind of, hypothetical street battle sort of thing. Yeah. There's other stuff, but it's hard. There was like so much stuff that I cut from that one because I was like, is that kind of like inciting something, or like is that too much? Like, like, and so I think it was reflected in a lot of the comments. A lot of people were like, yeah, this is really cool because it's not trying to encourage anyone to do any like Rambo shit, and it's not like like telling people to go out and like like buy weapons or like anything like that. And I mean, there's definitely some stuff that I cut out of there because I was like, this would probably get you in trouble,
right?
And I don't want anyone to be like, oh, I got whatever. But we can probably talk with Anansi about like where the line is for stuff like that,
Yeah.
I'm noticing a couple of people in the chat saying things along the lines of this happened in the UK, but in a different way. They waited until the media were out of the picture, and then they will kettle people, then they will assault people and stuff like that. And yeah, I would say my experience definitely echoes that in terms of protests. There's examples of there was the for the bill that we were talking about at the start of the show. There was a protest in Manchester for that, and the police were pretty bad in general. Just during the protest, like arrested a bunch of people. But one of the main things that I remember reading about was this 18-year-old kid who had attended the protest, was walking home, and a bunch of cops were hanging out in the van and outside of their van, kind of like round the corner. And all that they did was look at the kid and kind of sneer a bit, and this kid kind of just like looked down, like didn't want to get involved, and kind of like shook his head. This guy in a roid rage, this cop, ran out of the car, got him up against the van, strangled him, and then put him in the back of a van, drove him around for about 3 hours, and then dropped him in the middle of nowhere. It's there's all sorts of little differences in tactics in places that you'll go to that cops will do, and you do need to be aware of that as well. But yeah, I just wanted to
I mean, when we get when we get M on from Blood and Turf, they're going to be probably very happy to tell us, like, cops do just love to pick off the stragglers, pick off the weakest people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's their favorite fucking thing, because they're a bunch of fascists. And I don't fucking like, that's just the facts.
We'll probably get into that later once Anansi is here, but that's absolutely a thing, and that's why it's important to, if you're showing up with a group of friends, that you all need to, like, stay pretty tight. And it's, like, it's totally, like, that old, like, wartime thing as well, like, snipers picking off the people that kind of get separated. So, yeah, you want to be very aware of where your friends are. And speaking of regional tactics as well, our New Zealand cops are, like, super, super, like, aware of their optics, and they always do things like we were talking the other week, and mentioned at Iamatau, they were doing like photo ops that were coming up, and like like with guitars and like singing with people and stuff, and then like 5 minutes later they're setting like dogs on people and stuff, and it's like always that thing where it's like, okay, cool, they're gonna do their photo op, then like the cameras are gonna they're gonna get their photos, and then something's gonna happen, like that something is gonna happen after that. So it's like really important to try and like disrupt make sure they don't get any good photos or good videos or anything like that. Like, the propaganda is extremely strong down here.
I want to read Rinky Dink's comment. They said, underrated protest gear is a sheet or a blanket. If you get kettled, you can collectively create a sheet-based privacy screen for folks to piss and if they need to and such.
Oh, yeah.
We did that a bunch in the 2010s. That's a really smart idea.
That's really smart.
And this is, I just want to also take a moment to emphasize how this is not meant to be your moment. Protests, like revolution, this isn't your moment to finally, like, this is my moment to like show them, or to like, this is not a glamorous event, and we have to stop thinking that it is, one, the revolution is an event, and two, that any of these things are glamorous or meant to center yourself and make yourself feel powerful or whatever. It's something like I remember last week we were talking about how one of the most useful things you can do when it comes to like mutual aid is like to be able to drive people places. Like, just be able to give people rides. Like, it's not sexy. Driving your Prius around and picking up people. Do we have room? Can we get one more?
Yeah.
That's not sexy.
Yeah.
Bringing a blanket so people can piss in privacy is not sexy. But these are necessary things, and we have to, in my opinion, I think we have to stop glorifying this like cinematic portrayal, this idealistic portrayal, this unrealistic portrayal of like revolution as being this moment where everyone. This is like everyone has this like moment where they finally feel like I'm no longer a loser. Like, this is not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, let's just restate the what's been said on the show a few times already. Like, what this is about is capitalism is falling apart. Our global supply chains are failing, and we're gonna be in a situation where people need to take care of each other and defend one another. We've talked already a little bit about taking care of each other. We're gonna do more of that. Next week, the week after. Today is about self-defense. It's about defending yourself and others. I have a little bit of stuff I'm preparing for a protest that we could run through first, and I think others probably have stuff to contribute to this, and I know Anansi has even more stuff to contribute to it when they get here, but I'll just start with it anyway. This is advice. This is really basic advice that people often don't know. Right, is don't bring your phone to a protest. Like, don't do that, especially if you think shit's gonna get real. It's worth making a distinction. Actually, this leads on to something that Tim was just saying a minute ago, like about police optics. Like, talking about protest and optics is like really worthwhile. Sorry, one sec. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But if it's a protest that could turn into a riot, if it's a protest that police could crack down on, you don't want to bring your phone. There's also a more general thing about like not taking pictures of people because that can get people in shit. Like, don't do that. But you don't want your phone because like it's correct me if I'm wrong, pals, but like it's because like they could take it and then they'll withhold it from you, right?
Yeah.
Like as a leverage to keep you like detained, basically.
Yeah, you need to have a bust card instead. That's what they call them in the UK.
Yeah, so we put an example of some stuff there in the group chat. But something that we need to talk about, and we might just do a whole episode on this, is arrest support networks. Because again, in terms of taking care of one another, right? Knowing what to do if someone gets arrested, how to keep people from being arrested, how to help someone to like, navigate out of a near miss with arrest is another thing to do. But also just like if someone fully does get arrested at a protest, but there's like no charges and they're just gonna like be there and then get released. A lot of the time people just like get dropped in the middle of nowhere, or they get dropped out from the police station and they didn't bring their phone because they're smart and they know not to bring their phone to a protest, but like now they don't have their phone, they don't have money, they don't have anything, right? So they're in the middle of nowhere and they don't have any support. So that's like that's the kind of support that you can learn to do, is to go and be where people are going to be released and take care of them. But another thing that arrest support networks will promote is this thing I've dropped a link for, which is like Mule just mentioned, the bust card.
Yeah, I actually have mine right here, always on hand. It's just something that's got like legal advice.
Nicole, can you get the one up I put the link to in chat in the group?
Yeah, you put two. Which one would you like me to click on?
I think I got it here. Let me just copy this one. Yeah. And that should show you the kind of thing that we're on about. But yeah, I've always, like, mine is obviously I've taken this to loads of fucking protests. And it just says really just like in important stuff. There's like a number for a solicitor here. It says you have the right to free legal advice at the police station. Duty solicitors often give bad advice to processors, so we recommend this guy. Phone him instead. And obviously you are entitled to your phone call whenever you're arrested. That is your human right. And there's also different things if you witness arrests. There's a hotline that you can call here if you've witnessed something and you think it's a bit dodgy. And also legal advice for like stop and search. So it's really good just to like have this stuff. Or like I've got mine on a magnet on my board here. Just
nice.
Yeah, just always keep it. I have multiple copies.
Did you get yours green and black cross?
Huh?
Did you get yours green and black cross?
No, I got mine from a protest ages ago where they were just handing them out, which is another thing that you could
cool.
do if you want to be helpful.
That's true. Yeah, people have been asking me about like what can I do if I'm like not physically strong and I don't want to like go fight the cops or whatever. Firstly, we already said this: don't go fight the cops. But secondly, like there is loads of shit you can do, and we'll cover a bit more of like first aid and like I was just saying, arrest support networks is a great great thing you can do. But yeah, if you just printed out a bunch of bust cards and just were handing them out to everybody, that is a fantastic thing you can do at protests.
Yeah, there's like legal observers for protests who often do that. Like and I mean there's some organizations that actually will train legal observers to go to protests to, like keep an eye on the cops or like to hand out bust cards and stuff. Like there's like community law organizations over here. Like I know there's like the Wellington and Hutt Valley one. They like train people to go to, like regardless of what the protest is, so that people know their rights, all that kind of stuff. Not that you should always like rely on, people like that to be there or anything like that. But sometimes you will see them and they'll just, be from a community law center. Sometimes they'll have a little badge saying what they're from, and they'll just be giving out things being like, okay, these are your rights, which is cool. But also obviously do that yourself when you can, if it's something you can do.
And just for the UK, that's called greenandblackcross.org. It's a great resource, and that's the arrest support network I'm talking about. Yeah, and I'll maybe see if we can get in touch with them. Maybe get some. Like that could be.
Because all of these bust cards kind of have to be quite regional, So you like if I think on that Green and Black Cross one, it has for different cities and all that kind of thing. And like like over here or whatever, we have like. There's like different bylaws for different areas and, things like that. So you kind of want to make sure that the information that you've got is relevant to where you are, because if there is some kind of like technicality or loophole, it's probably going to be used against you. So you kind of have to be very aware of what, the local kind of situation is.
Although some universal advice, there are only ever two things you should say to police. Does chat know what they are?
Yeah. Someone in chat has alluded to it.
Yeah,
has alluded to it, but let's see if anyone in chat actually knows. That's looking good so far. All right, okay.
Something like that.
Chat's, they're in the city where the ballpark exists.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. They may be in the minivan
Friday.
on
You don't
way
say
to
that
the
to the
ballpark.
cop.
Yeah.
You don't go shut the fuck up Friday to the cop.
Right.
You don't ask for
Number
a lawyer.
Yeah. Number one, mule.
No comment. Sorry, no. Am I being arrested?
Am I?
Sorry.
Chat.
Yeah. I'm reading chat. That's ADHD for you. Yeah. Am I being arrested? That's the first thing you asked. Yeah. Right. Am I being arrested?
Number two, Tim.
Okay. So am I being arrested? And if you are being arrested, then you can say like, depending on where you are, like. You invoke your right to a lawyer or legal representation.
Oh, so the lawyer was the right one.
Oh yeah.
I assume that the person wasn't being arrested. So
if you are being arrested or detained, I guess if you're not.
Oh, then that's. All right. Well,
like,
I didn't realize that.
I just wanted to know.
Obviously, you asked for a lawyer.
And those are the only two things.
I thought it'd be like, I'm not gonna discuss my day, or I refuse to discuss my day, something like that. I remember we watched all those shut the fuck up, those two dudes. If anyone has, if anyone's a video,
it's Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
Yeah.
But like, and if you because if you do, if you do say some stuff like that, like "fuck off, pig" or whatever like that, then like in a lot of situations, the police will probably just
Here's the thing.
No, Lasso, you don't say make sure. Don't keep telling them different. Just am I being arrested?
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. I want to just definitely compound what Tim said there. Like we hate cops, we know, but you're not gonna do yourself any favors by going "fuck you, pig" or like anything like they are going to make your life a pain if you do that. Like, do your best to be very smart and very comply with them. Like, say like, okay, I'm gonna help you, right? But don't say it. Obviously, just like give them the idea that you're gonna go along with it, but let them know that you know your rights and you're not going to talk to them until you've got a solicitor with you.
Kerry says the one thing you should say to a cop is, remove your hand from my penis. All right.
Succulent Chinese meal.
Yeah. What's the charge? Eating a succulent Chinese meal? Right. There's one more thing I want to get over before we bring Anansi on in about 10 minutes.
I want to quickly. Can we quickly read this? Or I guess we went through it already.
Oh, sure. Hit me with it.
Because in case I put the link in the chat, but if you didn't get it, this is for London, but because I think each one has specific numbers on them. But advice on arrest: say no comment to all police questions during casual chats, booking in, and interviews. At the police station, you may wish to give your name, address, and date of birth to speed your release. For your protection and that of other people, don't answer further questions. Do not accept a caution without advice from a recommended solicitor. This is an admission of responsibility and goes on the police national computer. I don't know these terms as an American, so I think these are UK. Like,
but do you not have a caution from your police? Oh no, they just kill you. Sorry, I forgot you. Never mind.
Yeah, they give. Yeah, in the UK, they're like if you're doing something a bit sort of like just a bit naughty, like you've got a bit of weed on you or something, they'll be like, right, we're gonna give you a caution, and most people are like, oh, thank God, I'm not going to jail.
That's still on your record forever.
Exactly. You are branded a criminal then. Yeah.
And so just to make it clear to the chat, this advice is advice on arrest. So this is, if you've already been arrested. So the no comment thing, this comes after. If you go, am I being arrested? And they say yes, and you go, are you invoking my right to a lawyer? And then they arrest you, they take you downtown or put you in the back of a van or whatever like that. And then you say no comment. No comment.
Yeah, they will try and have, like it says here, casual chats with you. They'll just be like, so what have you been up to today? And it's just like, no, just no comment.
So here's the next one.
And this is, by the way, when like they'll absolutely try and bring out the friendliest looking cop in the whole squad. This is when the like 5'4" lass comes out and she's like, how you doing, love? Can I get you a cup of tea? How was the protest? Was it all right? And you're like, you're just like this. You're just like,
At like Yamato and Putuki and stuff like that, like they'll send out like the young Maori cops with like visible like pamoko and shit like that, and they'll like like all this kind of shit like that, and it's like it's really fucking devious.
All right, so the next one I want to read. This is again for London. So I put the link in the chat. If you want to look for your area of the UK chat, there it is. I think it's specific to the UK, right? So So legal questions about protest. Stop and search. You're not legally required to give your name and address under any stop and search power. See below website for more details. Legally, you must be told the reason and the power that you are being searched under. If you witness an arrest, want support, have legal questions about the protest, and you can contact here. So one thing I want to quickly point out is that cops in America, and I'm sure elsewhere, will always try to gaslight you on what the law is when they just make it up on the spot. This happens all the fucking time. Either out of ignorance, or they do it purposely. Like, it doesn't matter.
America is by the legal definition a police state for the exact reason that they don't need any reason to stop and search you. So actually, this one totally doesn't apply to America. Like, they just can.
They need a reason. They need a reason, but they just don't. They usually get around it. Right? At least that's my understanding.
They manufacture a reason with it. But that's probably why local bus cards are probably.
For instance, I know that at least in California, I learned this from from different sources, and the Shut the Fuck Up Friday thing is that if they smell weed, they'll claim that that's enough so they can search you, and then you can say no, it's not. Because they can always just fucking kill you then, and just figure out another thing and just lie later. But no, cops cannot just search you. This isn't like a stop and frisk thing like in what's his fucking name, Bloomberg's New York. But maybe what you're saying is that essentially they require no reason because they just get away with it all the time. Am I wrong, chat? Yeah, they still need some probable cause shit, but they do. I don't want to give the impression that if a cop says I'm going to search you, that you're like, well, that's the law here, I guess I have to, because that is not actually the case.
That's true. Do look this stuff up. I don't want to, So one last thing before we bring Anansi on, I just wanted to cover something, which is I went and asked my patron Discord, is there anything people want to see us cover when we talk about protest and riot tactics? Someone asked me this question. Is it better to protest where it causes the most disruption or gets the most attention? The examples they gave were, this is UK specific, would it be better to a protest outside Parliament or like a stop protest where like a sit-in protest where you stop the traffic on the M25.
Right. Yeah.
So
like attention versus disruption, basically.
Right. It's kind of interesting conversation, but like the quickest thing here to understand is like every protest is going to sit on a scale, and not just protest, but all forms of protest. So some forms of what we would call direct action, you wouldn't call like a traditional protest, right? Sit on a scale between getting attention and causing disruption. In How to Blow Up a Pipeline, first recommend, and it's the book I've been recommending over and over again. There it is again, How to Blow Up a Pipeline by Andreas Malm. He talks about resistance as opposed to protest, right? There's where people are choosing to stop systems that are harming people, right? And that's the one end of the spectrum. It's like someone's chaining themselves to a bulldozer, or they just refuse to let something happen. And that is one end of the spectrum, and the other one is about getting attention and raising awareness for something. And I think I put some examples in here, right? So okay, attention-grabbing marches, right? The Women's March, Pride marches, the Million Man March, those were all attention-grabbing, right? But they weren't disrupting anything or doing direct resistance to something, unlike the suffragettes went around smashing in windows and blowing shit up, the climate camps, which stopped oil refineries from working, Seoul at Yamato, like Tim, you talked about Yamato a bunch, but like, you know, there's like good examples around that where like people have been disrupting and stopping
like
developers
stopping developers, like, you know, getting in front of the bulldozers and stuff.
Exactly.
But that's like the whole thing about like the suffragettes, right? It's like, you know, a lot of the time like people just act as if they were just, you know, sitting around like singing songs.
Oh yeah,
and,
totally.
You know, like all that kind of stuff. But like no, they were like petrol bombing places, smashing windows and stuff. But it's only this kind of like liberal view of history that it's like, oh man, like those noble women that just kind of, you know, like show, you know, what are they turn the other cheek and whatever, you know, just bullshit like that.
So it's illegal to mail a person in the Royal Mail in the UK now. And it wasn't before the suffragettes because women were banned from Parliament, and they found the only way to get a woman into Parliament was they mailed one in. But yeah,
what the fuck?
Yeah,
They like go around and like they smashed up the Prime Minister's house and stuff.
Yeah,
and
they did
like,
all
next
sorts of
time we'll
shit,
set it on fire. Like,
yeah, but they didn't actually. This is a crucial thing actually, and again, Andreas Malm does talk about this a little bit in How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Like, they didn't kill anybody, they didn't even hurt anybody. They only engaged in property destruction to make a point and to disrupt and to damage the systems, not people. And that is a point leading on to what I was going to say, right? If you're like stopping traffic on the M25, for my non-cursed people who luckily live outside the UK, the M25 is a big ring road that exists around London, and it's like a lot of traffic that's like trucks and lorries and vans and just ordinary people trying to get on with their lives. Yes, you'll be disrupting a lot if you go and sit in the M25 and stop traffic from moving and cause a huge traffic jam, and everyone will think you're a dick. Everyone will think you're a dickhead, and they will not be sympathetic to your cause. I'm not just talking about like because the UK public are so reactionary. For sure they are. Not just because the media can spin it that way, but like you're actively making it super easy for the media to spin it that way, right? And that's another thing that Andreas Malm talks about. Is he talks about examples of like Extinction Rebellion activists who glued themselves to the top of London Underground trains, and that stopped them from going. And then the crowd were just like a ton of working class commuters who had to get to work, and loads of them were like yelling at these guys who were like middle class white guys, right? Hey, I just need to feed my family and you're stopping me getting to work, you fucking piece of shit. Like a black guy tried to climb up and like get one of them down, and the guy who, again, middle class white guy, like kicked him in the head to like shove him off. And like, so let's just think about optics for a second. I know we hate thinking about optics, but like that's like this middle-class white guy literally just kicked a black guy in the head. Not a great look for Extinction Rebellion. Really turned the public mood against them incredibly hard. By contrast, the first big Extinction Rebellion protest was one where they shut down all the central bridges of London by camping on them. The central bridges in London, Central London is incredibly bougie. It's all students and like upper class dickheads and finance guys and the the MPs, right, who are trying to do all their ruling class shit, right? And if you shut down those bridges, that's kind of based. It's attention grabbing.
People going to work.
Yeah, like exactly. And it's like it's disruptive and attention grabbing and good. So like the thing is, to some degree, unless what you're doing is just chaining yourself to a bulldozer in the middle of like in the middle of nowhere to stop a forest from getting knocked down, you always need to think about optics. And so like the example of the M25 is a bad one, but I'm glad that my Patreon supporter suggested that, because I wanted to talk about like why that's bad. But that's all about planning protests, so that's not really what we're here to talk about today. I just wanted to go over some of that stuff because I thought it was a pretty interesting distinction.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think it's important to remember what is the purpose of a protest. Like, I know we hate talking about optics, but like in my opinion, the purpose of a protest is quite literally to get eyes onto an issue, right?
Right.
Beyond that, if you're stopping, say like a supply chain or whatever, and then I think you could probably also, this is just my own definition, you could probably also call that a protest, but I think it goes beyond a protest and more toward more into like an actual, maybe like a strike or something like that, or a boycott or whatever.
This is where we blur the lines between forms of protest and direct actions.
But I just want to make sure I note that, because like optics is like a cringe word when you see it all over the internet, but because maybe we should even just find another way to talk about it, because the word optics is so fucking gross at this point. But the idea of like what is the purpose of a protest? Is the purpose of a protest to like, we're gonna end racism by like being in the street and chanting about it? Like that typically isn't, that's like, in my opinion, protests exist to force people to acknowledge like outrage at the state of things. And in that regard, I think the fact that like the noticing is the goal, and therefore you need to craft that noticing. You need to craft what they are noticing. What are they noticing? Noticing like one guy just like screaming in the middle of a freeway, or that's the face of like Black Lives Matter or something. Or you know,
I think like there's like a lot of stuff as well. You know, like where like a protest can be an act of like legitimate disruption. Like, you know, we get this a lot with like, you know, these kind of issues over like land back and things like that, where it's like there is the optics or whatever being seen, and then there's also like, you know, we are here to physically disrupt this development, you know, like that is the goal. But then, you know, there's like obviously like optics wise there's like a huge difference between like a random person by themselves that goes and like, you know, does something to disrupt this thing, like whether it's like, you know, what might be, I don't know, I don't want to like talk too specifically about things that, you know, a lone person might do, but then like versus like a mass movement of people working together that can be seen, you know, like there's two very different ways that this can be framed in the media and be seen and all this kind of stuff like that. And I think like the goal is to like, I mean, I think like, you know, actually let's not talk too much about either of those things, because I'm being careful, but sure. But I think that like you know, when we're living in an age where like, you know, like everything is like put on TV and everything, like the media do control the narrative about these protests, like even with, you know, things like Iamata, where it's like it was very hard for them to frame it in a negative light. They were still searching for absolutely any angle that they could to be like, you know, like, oh no, like these people are like, you know, like they're terrorists or they're doing something like that, you know, whatever like that. So it's like even though that some protests do, you know, and a lot of them do have like a very physical, like we have like a concrete objective with this. We're not just doing it to be seen or anything like that. I think that you know, that element of how you're being perceived is still super strong even in those situations, right?
Yeah, definitely. Goblin Breakfast in chat said, I remember in Poland, even a few tram and bus drivers would try and help protests by stopping the vehicle, helping to block and or display messages. And that's really, really cool. And it also reminds me of something that Matilda from the IWW, who I did an organizing interview with and also will be on the show in a few weeks, told me that there was a protest in Japan, or it was a strike, where bus drivers, they struck not by actually stopping working. They carried on driving the buses, but they just didn't charge any passengers. And I just thought it was really fucking based.
We've had that done here a couple times, and it's it's really good, and it works really well because, you know, like the public immediately are like, yes, this is cool. Like, you know, like, wait, why are you doing this or whatever? You know, and like the bus drivers were just letting people on and being like, don't worry about it. You know, like we're, you know, this is an action that like an industrial action thing that we're doing, whatever. We're not getting paid enough So, you guys ride free. Don't worry about it. It's on the business today, sort of thing. Which is awesome. That's happened like maybe twice in the last couple of years, and each time has been successful. So
hell yeah, yeah. I think let's wrap up this discussion and bring Anansi on. But I just want to read out a message that Nat put in chat, which is Andreas Malm. This is true. This is a really good point to bring up from the book. Specifically talks about striking targets that are associated with the harm that people are doing. So like we get this association of self-defense. Like something he advocates for is for people to basically do a big protest that is like an attack on whatever like climate destructive thing every time there is some kind of big natural disaster, so that just like everybody else is thinking, every time there's a natural disaster, people are protesting. That's because it's a thing that can be stopped, and it's that's a way to think of it. But that's all organizing protests. Let's bring Anansi on, and we can hear about what to do if you're suddenly caught up in a protest that turns nasty.
Hell yeah.
And real quick, thanks Useless 44 minutes ago for the 200 bits. That's very, very sweet. Useless, you're very, very kind to me. And also, so if I'll ask you end your stream, and then we'll pull Anansi in.
Okay, and I've ended it, and now here's Anansi. Hey.
Well, everything's mixed up. For some reason, wait, this doesn't make it. There it is. Okay, whoa.
all right.
Hang on. So I'm DJ Mule.
Discord figure it out.
And then Anansi is Conquest of Dread. Tim, you're me. That's cool.
Okay,
Cole, how did you manage to still be you? Yeah, we can hear you. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Yeah, apparently the whole Discord does things in alphabetical order rule is a temperamental rule that is not always.
Yeah, you're still on the four. You're still on the four pictures screen. You've knocked DJ Mule off entirely.
Oh no.
That's fine.
Oh yeah, I am in 4, but they're still not ordered correctly. So I'll just rearrange it. It's fine.
Okay. Anansi, hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
All good. Yeah.
Do you want to tell chat who you are, what you do, like, your credentials, I guess.
Yeah. My name is Anansi, obviously. How do I sum this up? I've been on the ground with a lot of protests. I have a lot of experience having been at protests and stuff. Like, having been involved in a lot of very exciting, I guess is the way you could describe it, kind of situations. Having just been through a lot, I have a lot of experience. I also run the channel, which is a great where I talk about books and stuff. Sorry, I'm bad at summing myself up.
Well, if it's okay for me to talk about some of the like nasty shit that you've experienced, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know that you've been like shot with rubber bullets multiple times, right?
I haven't been shot with rubber bullets. I've been shot with pepper bullets. And,
pepper bullets, yeah.
I've been like hit. They shoot those like canisters that have tear gas. I've like been hit directly with those as well. I think all in all, I've been shot like 15 times. I was once shot directly in the face.
Jesus Christ!
Wow. Okay.
Top of just having been like.
Can we get some ACABs in chat real quick? Just a few little 1312s.
That would be very therapeutic. But yeah, yeah. Just basically, if you can think of it, I've probably experienced it or almost experienced it at least once.
Wow. Okay.
And as a quick aside, I want to make a note of saying that, like, when we talk, this is just a personal pet peeve, but naming them rubber bullets, I think doesn't really do much service to what they are. They're 40mm baton rounds coated in rubber.
Yeah.
And rubber bullets may sound like it's like a Nerf gun.
Oh, yeah. Totally, yeah. And even by design, they're advised to be used by shooting at the ground for them to bounce up and lose a lot of momentum. And
you're not supposed to shoot people.
Shoot in your face, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Also, Nancy, I don't know if you're using like a mic that you're leaning into, or if it's on your like a cord, but if you're leaning,
I'm just gonna make another tea while this is.
Your volume's fluttering a little bit. If you could lean into it a little bit more, but if it's not one of those mics, then don't worry about it. We'll just deal.
We just roll with it.
Sorry, it's the mic that's on my
Okay.
Is this okay?
I think so. It's fluttering in and out, so no worries. It's fine.
Have you got like a noise gate on it?
I don't. Sorry.
Okay, no worries then.
It's probably the Discord default something or other. Who knows?
Yeah. It will be.
Which is always so frustrating. But yeah, the rubber bullets conjures up something that's harmless as paintballs. Yeah, and it's not. And I think that that's just another example of just, propaganda. Just constantly trying to make it seem like they're just here just to kindly just guide this ruckus group of hooligans to just, please, we're here to de-escalate, when in actuality they're the complete opposite of that.
Sorry, go.
I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the whole thing with the rubber bullets is that like these weren't engineered as a soft thing to deter protests. It's basically like they were like, this is a real bullet, and then we need to work back to the point that we are legally allowed to shoot these at people. So it's like just adding like doing the little things or whatever, so they could make like a less lethal round or whatever. It's not like there was no there was no altruistic purpose with like, we're creating these so they're safe or anything like that. They're like, what is the most lethal thing we are legally allowed to just shoot at people and not, just murder them or whatever, So, I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Like, there's not, like these are very close to just being straight up bullets.
Like the I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No, please go ahead. I was going to ask you a question, but I would love you to. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just like the way people talk about it is often very dismissive. Like, oh, the cops just like shot rubber bullets at a bunch of protesters, and like what gets forgotten is that getting hit with one of these things means like a months long healing process. Like sometimes years. Like some people will never recover from like.
Right, exactly. Sometimes they're like permanently blinded or permanently.
Like permanently disabled.
Permanent brain damage. Yeah.
And like the psychological trauma as on top of that, like that compounds as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's gonna scare people from actually, getting involved in protests, like, which is the idea. That's a wide.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It's that that like typical like U.S. military doctrine of like you respond to any kind of threat with overwhelming force, like as much as is possible to stop whatever's going on. Like, damn the consequences. They're not worried about how bad they're going to hurt these people that they're shooting at in the future. They just care about stopping what they're doing right now by any means.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mentioned it a little in the video that we watched earlier, and I've seen some other people talking about it in the chat where it's like they will employ these things. They'll kittle you. They'll do other stuff that is like like illegal. But for them, it's better to do things that are that are illegal, that'll fuck people up, that they'll pay for in court down the line, and then kind of like destroy the movement, the protest as it's happening. It's better for them to deal with it down the line, pay the money, whatever, like that. And it's never very much, like they pay victims and all this kind of stuff. It's better for them to do that and to destroy the kind of whatever the disruption is, than to actually like, you're not going to see a cop like sitting on the front lines like thinking like, oh man, should I like wound, like permanently injure this person, whatever, like that. Like they, it's way easier for them just to be like, okay, the police union will sort it out down the track, like.
Holster your assault rifle so that you can like make a little pros and cons list of firing into the crowd.
Yeah, and like their first method of like dealing with anyone who tries to sue them for like stuff they've done, just to deny it. Just no, didn't happen, or you don't have enough evidence to prove it happened. So when
it's like, gaslight, it's almost gaslight all the time. It's just, we were talking.
Yeah, it's like earlier. it's almost better for your mental health to not even bother reporting, because they're just going to re-traumatize you through the process of trying to get things done. They're going to like intentionally intimidate you. They're going to like follow you home and stuff like that. Like they're going to really employ like terror on people and then just like not talk about it.
And there are, I mean, there's plenty of people from different protest movements that have like just disappeared. So like that's the thing.
Oh yeah, no. Like right after the uprising in 2020 started, there was like a whole bunch of lynchings that just all of a sudden happened. Like that same, like within days of the uprising starting, there were lynchings going on, and then it went on months after, and it wasn't really talked about. And then like there was also
I remember
like,
that
overt just like police assassinating activists. Like I believe it was, his name was Winston Duke. They surrounded him on like top of a parking garage while he was on a date with someone, and then like, shot him while he was in his car.
Is that the one that Trump was bragging about, where he was like?
No, that was a different.
It's a different one. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, like of all of the.
Trump was bragging. Winston Duke was killed I think last year. Yeah, they literally like pulled a Fred Hampton kind of assassination on him. They just pulled up and surrounded him and just shot him.
And like and because of I mean like the way that like a lot of these because of the way that police unions kind of work, and it's getting clear like police unions aren't unions in the same way that like a working,
they're not unions. Period. Like, they're gangs. They're just they're mobs.
They're not. Yeah. They in the way that they all cover for each other. They like they have endless fun. Like police unions get so much money from like different local government and everything like that. And they use this money to protect themselves, to like for legal fees, all these things like that. And it's like if you take them to court, you've got to pay for all that stuff yourself or whatever. If you try and bring a case against the cops, you've got like basically like the entire policing institution against you. So that's like what Anansi was saying. Like a lot of the time, people just you gotta go to court, you gotta pay all this stuff, you gotta relive all this trauma and everything like that. A lot of people just don't do it because they're like, I would rather just get on with my life and deal with it than have to go through the whole circus,
Mm-hmm. It's freakishly similar to say like women that are sexually, or people that are sexually assaulted, but primarily like especially women, where like being sexually assaulted, then having to go through the act of like having to like press charges. I'm speaking from like personal experience, especially since it was cops that convinced me to drop the charges against someone who raped me. Sorry, trigger warning. This whole episode is very trigger warning. I'm aware. Apologies. But I just want to throw that one piece in there because cops are scum. They are not here to protect you, for the record. But like one of the things that got me like exhausted at the idea of pressing charges against this person was, besides the cops, pressuring me not to, was the fact that I would have to fly into like another state over and over again, continually like I don't want to be re-traumatized, especially by a system that is most likely not going to care. And also it's just not going to. And this is, you don't have to have experienced that dramatic of an ordeal to understand that as a marginalized person, especially, it's really nice to be able to like, stick it to them. But sometimes I think sometimes you just need to protect yourself and not just continually re-traumatize yourself to make some points. And where you draw the line, I think is a tricky one. It's very personal, and I think it's tricky.
What Lost Sue has mentioned in the chat as well, how a lot of the stuff is normal in native protests and standoffs. But there's I've heard of stories of like after protests or whatever, of people like cops just like going and picking up natives and just like taking them into the middle of nowhere and dropping them off. I think someone actually maybe was talking about it last time in chat. There's a couple different names for it, but like literally just going and like dumping them somewhere completely different or whatever, or like all kinds of crazy stuff. I think there's a name for it. But just like wild, like it's like they just operate with complete impunity. Starlight Tours, that's what someone's saying in the chat.
Right.
Like, that's the thing, right? Yeah. It's extremely fucked up, and it's like it's something that just happens. Like this is shit that happens all of the time, But
so Anansi, your class is in session, and you're here to school us all. So like, why don't you dive into your incredible notes you've given us?
Okay, I kind of just like I didn't really have a plan. I just kind of like wrote everything I could think to write that I felt like people.
I know there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but there's like a lot of stuff that, like looking back on, is like stuff I wish I had known, stuff like that. And you guys already gone over like one of the first things I want to talk about, which was talking about knowing your rights and like knowing how to talk to cops and stuff like that. Like obviously, shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. One of my favorite chants to hear on the ground at a protest is the chant. Someone says, "What did you see?" and everyone responds, "I didn't see shit." No one saw shit. But yeah, I think one first important things like going into a protest setting, I would say, is like having people that you're going with. Like going like it's okay to go to protests alone, but it's a lot safer to go friends and go with people.
Absolutely.
You can all keep each other safe on the ground. You can all kind of keep track of each other. Um, if anything comfortable happens, obviously, like you leave together. Um, the term everyone's probably familiar with affinity groups, or even
Yeah.
your affinity group should be established. There are advantages to having a group and to going alone. Going as an individual means that you're quicker and you're like more quick to react to stimuli if something happens. You can leave faster if you're on your own. You can probably disappear through a crowd easier if you're
Yeah.
on your own. Um,
And
it's
you could
easier.
set like like a location, like if you get separated, we're all gonna meet back at like this fountain, blah
Yeah,
blah blah blah. Like, and
exactly.
if like if we're not there by this time, then like something's happened to someone, which is really good, especially if you don't take a phone, things like that can really
Yeah,
solve a lot of questions. Like you might be like, oh shit, where's Soph? We can't text her.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
That's also like knowing the environment you're going to be protesting is also really important. So, like knowing different landmarks and stuff can help you. Like you can tell someone, oh, we're all going to meet back here in case someone loses their phone,
yeah,
in case anything happens. But you also can quickly identify places where you can hide or potentially change your clothes for
yeah,
no reason at all. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
those
yeah.
different sorts of
Absolutely.
It's
those
good to
different
have an
sorts of
outfit
advantages.
change. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always good.
Sometimes you
Exactly.
just want to be more stylish at the protest. You get there and you're like,
Sometimes
shit.
you walk into a scene and you're already dripped out and you just need to drip even more, so you gotta change your
That's
clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just how it
Well,
is. It's three
sometimes you
levels
need
of
to
drip.
just sometimes one of your friends shows up with an outfit that you think it might be a good idea to swap clothes for a little bit. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like that's
Exactly.
always helpful. Like, yeah,
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 I
Exactly.
mean, let's be
Cool.
real about this for a second. We're all joking around, but it's like if you do something really embarrassing in front of someone really cool, and you just want them to not recognize you anymore.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
you want to change your clothes because
Boom, there
you
we
want
go.
then they won't recognize you anymore because you
Look,
changed
see,
your clothes.
You will have
all you
escaped
have to
privilege.
do is roll your d20 and then tell me if you get a plus for your deception check.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I'm just gonna duck out for a second and check on my cat and everything.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Actually, you put some graphics in the notes, and I wonder if Nicole,
Yes.
you can get some of these up. The first one is know your rights. So, do you want that one up? Actually, I mean,
Yeah, we
why
don't
you
have
just
to
tell
look
us
at all of them.
which ones you want.
So we can start with the know your rights protest one because this is a thing about protests. Like knowing your rights at a protest is pretty important.
Yeah.
Then
This stuff's all
yeah.
just in the notes. There you go.
Ignore this arrangement. It's clearly wrong.
It's
clearly wrong.
It's okay.
But yeah, know your rights. So.
Or did you want the blue one?
Yeah, the blue one.
Oh, okay, my
Yeah,
bad.
scroll up a bit, Nicole, to the
Was it
top.
up?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one.
There it is. Nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Distro in chat says, "Got to check to make sure the cat is still cute." I'm pretty sure it will be. I'm pretty
Definitely
sure.
cute. Yeah.
Didn't know chat. Conquest of Dread got a cat recently.
ACAB, all cats are beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. Yeah. No, you're right. It's gone. Tell us about it.
All right, cool. Yeah, like if you're at a protest, obviously you have your First Amendment right to peacefully assemble, photograph and videotape the police. You have the right to protest in public spaces like parks, sidewalks. Technically, you have to like protest in the street, but I mean, sometimes you can kind of play fast and loose with that rule. Sometimes people kind of choose to ignore it. Sometimes you don't. Depending on what you're doing, that can draw more it's that sort of question of like, is it hypocritical to get a permit to protest?
You're dipping out a little bit again, babe. I don't know if it might be your Discord settings or your internet. It could be either. Actually, that's a point. If it's your Discord, your voice and video settings on Discord.
I can check them real quick.
Yeah, cool.
Just go to voice and video. I think what's happening is, you've got the. Let's just have a look here. Automatically determine your input sensitivity.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
is what
kind
it
of
sounds like, because it keeps on
voice activity.
getting louder and quieter. It sounds like that.
Mm-hmm. And then yeah, just basically turn that off, and then take it just right down. Just like, you see what we're on about?
The noise gate cuts out things that
Is
are
that
not, that are slightly
is that
quiet.
better?
That's
Yeah.
it sounds better
Sounds good so
immediately,
far.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. I also like have been muting myself when I stop talking.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know if that
you
affects
don't need
anything.
you don't need to do that for us. Don't worry, we're
Okay.
all making weird noises.
Yeah, you're
All
fine.
right. Okay. Cool.
I'm like literally eating right now, so sorry about that. I'm really hungry.
So rude. Can't believe it.
No, it's cool.
I'm on
Bad
this
at
like workout
being not
grind, you
rude.
know. If you want to know,
That's
about
true.
It, we can
Gotta
talk
get
about
those
it
games
again.
in.
You know,
true.
been doing it for 3 weeks. Not a big deal. Okay, so yeah.
So
by
yeah,
the way,
yeah.
so I want to make a note
sorry,
of
go on.
saying that we're talking right now. We were talking before about UK. Now we're talking
Yep.
about America, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we're talking about it.
So we need to orient
I
ourselves because we're
am
talking to an
in-
international audience as well, and we're kind of talking about the laws and the specifics of different parts of the world. While there
Yeah.
are a lot of similarities across the board, there are going to be some specific changes, more nitpicky changes, you know, pertaining to, say, First Amendment rights. That's a thing in America, not anywhere else. Although there are similar types of rights elsewhere.
Yeah, like this, my whole perspective is like coming from America. So like my like perspective on cops and everything like that is coming from like maybe the cops in your area aren't as aggressive as they are here. Like, because I know like LAPD has a reputation worldwide for being like insanely corrupt and villainous. So like just they have a particular, them and LAPD have like a particular like extreme aggression when it comes to protests.
Yeah.
So it's like that's kind of like all where I'm coming from in my mentality. If stuff I say doesn't apply to you, that's perfectly okay. Like the situation is different.
Yeah, it's
This
important to
just
know
like
where
that
you're at.
is useful. Sorry, I'm like rambling.
No, you're fine.
No,
good.
go for it. That's
Cool.
fine.
No,
That's
tell us
fine.
whatever you're here to tell us. Like that's the
Yeah.
point. That's literally the point. Like Tim stepped away, and he's like, I think of the four of us has the most to contribute back to you. Like, so
Yeah.
that's why we're a bit quiet right now.
Yeah.
You
Well-
know, that's okay.
Yeah. I wanted to
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't know if this is, and host, tell me if this is completely off, but we were talking earlier, this is less about tactics and more about the purpose of a protest, which I think is actually kind of related to tactics, because like I was looking through your notes and you were describing in some detail some tactics, like being like stealth and maneuvering and stuff. And I think that although it doesn't seem like it's specific to the conversation we're having about tactics, I think that ultimately, in order to frame tactics, we have to know like what is the point of what we're doing. And
that is absolutely true.
Yeah. So I don't know if you had any specific, if not, it's fine, but I don't know if you had any specific like personal, like when you protest, what are you trying to accomplish? I know it's you as an individual can't really accomplish much in a protest, period, because it's never about one person. But what are you trying to make happen?
It depends on the it depends on the protest, because
Okay.
sometimes you're just trying to get public attention and public support,
Okay.
and you know trying to raise awareness, and that's a fairly simple thing. You don't have to worry too much when you're like that's all you're really trying to do. But then sometimes people have the goal of like marching to a specific location. Sometimes people just have like a specific goal, like a specific thing they're trying to accomplish with whatever it may be, and that depending on what you're trying to do, the spiciness level of it is in Minecraft, obviously. That changes how you need to approach the situation. And sometimes even when you're at like something that's supposed to be a little more calm, like you're just trying to raise awareness and stuff, it ends up turning into a violent situation.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
There's like a general level of awareness that's always useful, because there's always that chance that a regular normal protest can turn into like a running street battle, cops out of nowhere. Not that anyone would ever do that.
Yeah, no, we're never wanting that to go down, and I honestly believe that. Like, I think that people shouldn't go in. I mean, I don't know. I personally am not. I hope this is not like a lib take, but I have like a personal issue with the like warrior mentality of like this.
Oh yeah, the Rambo.
Yeah, the Rambo. Yeah. Like they're. I don't know. I think that it can be a very like self-serving thing, and
yeah.
I don't know. I was part of the. I'm not nearly as experienced as you, but I was part of the Seattle BLM protests and like the creation of the Chaz. And I remember there was a few people that were kind of centering it around themselves and like, you know, how much that they would do. I don't know. It felt like I didn't know how to judge the situation. I'm still very aware that I don't know much about anything about this because I have a very little experience still at the end of the day. But it was like, I'm like the person who's there to try to like make center themselves and have their Rambo moment, like you were saying, Tim. It's a little bit of a peeve of mine.
Yeah, and I've seen that, like, you know, I've seen that a bunch of times where people, like, they want to get someone taking, you know, especially these days with, like, the whole kind of, like, you know, these, like, Instagram kind of, like, activist types where it's, like, you know, they don't actually, like, they don't really care too much about what it's actually happening, but they want to get, like, a photo of, like, you know, them at, like, one of these events or whatever, and you get, like, you know, people, like, that's a surefire way to get yourself in trouble. Like, that's incriminating yourself or whatever. There's, like, there's reasons why, you know, like, the guy that punched Richard Spencer, has never, you know, like, he's never been arrested or anything like that because he never bragged about it. And he was, like, and he kept his shit low-key.
Never did, like, interviews about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the Hong Kong protests, there was that dude that did like the fucking running, jumping kick and like, you know, kicked a cop in the head. He has never been identified, well, they have never been identified, I should say, but all the others around in that situation, the people that weren't wearing masks and stuff, like the guy that tried to take the cop's gun afterwards, all of those people have faced charges. The guy that did the head kick never faced charges because he didn't brag about it. He never told everyone I was the head kick guy. You know, he didn't do shit.
Yeah. One of the first rules of security culture is like you don't post about anything. Like, you do about even when you talk about you have to be very careful about how you talk about stuff online. You know, it's why like one of the safest things to do is just like, not say anything you did, just talk about stuff police have done. Because they do all sorts of illegal stuff that people want to hear about already. And then just keep your mouth shut when it comes to certain things. If you have to ask yourself the question, is this safe to post online? The answer is no.
Yeah,
just straight away.
Which again, just to reiterate, on Red Planet, we sometimes discuss matters that involve people doing things which are illegal, and that's not. We're not endorsing that. We don't endorse any illegal activity here, of course. And we're talking in abstract about things that people do. It's our official position that increasing authoritarian policies of states and behaviors of police leave people with no other choice to do things. Doesn't mean we endorse them.
They create the situation that these things are bound to happen.
I love America. For the record.
We all love the free. Yeah, it was our favorite place.
And that all goes back to that like sort of conversation of like, are people like trying to have their Rambo moment, or is a situation occurring where people will feel the need to protect themselves from state violence? Because a term that you don't hear often enough is the term cop riot, because cops do riot and they riot at protests. So like when people describe violence at protests, like, oh, like the cops like put down this protest. They don't describe it as like the cops like, no, they lost control, like got mad and just attacked a bunch of people. And there's a difference. There's a difference between like defending yourself from illegal violence from someone who happens to be a cop, and you know, doing something illegal, which we obviously don't recommend. But it's legal to defend yourself, and sometimes people will feel the need to take collective action to do that because of the way the cops are behaving, especially when like we said before, cops are a gang. We all know that. There's 100% like documented proof of that. Like just here with LASD, there are like 18 active gangs within Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Totally.
Supremacist, neo-Nazi gang.
Someone in chat just reiterated something we already said on stream, but and do
Yes.
not ever take and post selfies.
No.
Like that's another thing. Like even if you're at a protest that you think is like completely chill and is on, like we talked about the spectrum before, and you think it's on the way more chill end of the spectrum, just might be worthwhile. Like even if you are taking pictures with, like you take a picture of yourself with some friends. Which don't do that, but like if just in case you do, because you think it's a totally chill, fun time and nothing's gonna happen, maybe just wait until everyone's gone home before you post that.
Yeah.
Just and like you
even
never know
if
how
you're trying to take photos of like things that cops are doing or whatever like that, if you've got a burner phone that you've brought or something like that, always avoid getting photos that you might just take someone's get someone's face, because they do definitely look on social media and they look through photos and they go like, oh look, here's this person, okay cool, we can pin them as being
many police
whatever, you know?
We've all sorry.
No,
well, many police departments are already using like facial recognition software to scan through social media.
Yeah, and we've all seen that one picture of like the cops in Portland with that huge screen of just every live stream and like every Instagram post that people are posting, just like looking through everything.
Yeah,
it's always good to like, one, wipe the metadata off pictures before you post them, and two, like if you're posting pictures from protests, like block out people's faces. That's just like a common, like a regular common courtesy that everyone should practice.
Yeah, another thing as well is
it's important to remember the saying, like cameras are cops.
Yeah, and also identifiable things as well. So not just faces. If you've got identifiable tattoos, even like labels and brands on clothes. Like there's been a whole bunch of people that have been arrested like after the fact because of like people like cops or whatever will recognize the branding on items of clothing, like backpacks and things, you know, like it has like a little like a JanSport thing or whatever like that, or a little Nike tick or whatever, and then and then they later on they can be like, okay cool, well this person has that backpack and these shoes or whatever like that, this, we can line this up with this person that was at this event or whatever like that. And that actually happens. Like, you might have gone to this protest and you might think everything's all good. And then 2 weeks later, you get a knock on the door and they go like, oh, are those your shoes down there by the door? All this kind of shit, like it actually happens. And it's like, it seems like some, like wild, like dystopian future thing, but this is like literally things that are happening right now.
We live in a boring dystopia. That's all it is.
The banality of dystopia.
I already mentioned M, who's going to be on the show to talk about cult research, who I think is watching now because they just sent me a message. But I saw them tweeting the other day. So M, if I get these details wrong, there you go. I saw them tweeting the other day about a group who were giving the police some grief, and they'd started masking up with red bandanas and like as a little like identifier together, and it's like cute guys, but like you're literally just marking out your group as like as like firstly like people who they know have caused them trouble before, and secondly like it like way more recognizable, and then they're going to be looking at the guy with the red bandana, like Tim said, like what shoes is that guy wearing, like what other stuff, absolutely.
And so like I mean like the intention of like the whole like black bloc thing, like dressing all in black and stuff, isn't like a lot of people think it's to be intimidating or anything like that, but it's I mean, and there is like the whole thing of like being seen together as like a mass movement, and you're all matching, blah blah blah. Like there's like the morale side of things, but like the main thing is that it's so you don't get made by the cops, right? And this like it's like the same thing like when like I'm gonna say individuals doing things outside of the law in general. You might get like all have like really like basic hairstyles, like really like common clothes, things like that. Like it doesn't necessarily mean to be all black, but if the cops pull a bunch of people aside and they go like, okay, it was the like the young guy with the shaved head and the the whatever the blue jeans or whatever like that, it's it's like they're gonna be like, okay, well we've got 10 of these right here or whatever. The black bloc is like really accessible because everyone can get it or whatever. But I think also, Anansi, I think you put something in the notes as well about saying that. Yeah, there's an alternative to this now, right?
Like that. Yeah, like black bloc has its uses in specific situations with like specific intentions. Like you just mentioned, like that the statement of like everyone being together in a big like matching mass like that is a big thing. Like the anonymity of it and all of that kind of stuff. But the problem with Black Bloc is that it actually draws a lot more attention to you because a mass of people all marching in black down the street, it is intimidating and it does draw a bigger police presence that is more ready to get violent. So Black Bloc, it has its usefulness in that very limited situation. What's actually better a lot of the time, and even like a lot more of the time, is not doing Black Bloc, but doing what people call gray block. So you're not trying to dress like in all black and be like scary or anything like that. But you're dressing in the most generic way possible, to the point that you're kind of invisible. Like you the come up with a terrible metaphor for this. You know, like in the Assassin's Creed games, where like if you like walking past a bunch of monks in the same color robes, you can like pull your hood up and then walk with them. You can just kind of blend in with any group of people. Gray Block gives you that ability because you can be in process. You can even like have your gear and stuff and like be like ready for anything. So like, you can look and get that like stealth bonus.
But I want to be Neo. I want to be Neo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could be Neo, or you could not get batoned in the head by
right, exactly.
To expand on the Gray Block thing for 1 second, this comes from a concept in like surveillance culture called the Gray Man, which is basically like, a lot of people think that this is to wear like shit from the Gap. It's not just to wear like normie core.
Divorced dad.
It's like Anansi's example is great. Like if there's a group of monks walking by, like Ezio can put up his hood and look like the monks, right? It's about who's around you. So a lot of people think that you can basically like dress in a particular style to look like the Gray Man. Like they think that the Gray Man has a specific look, and actually firstly that look that a lot of people think that it looks exactly like a Fed, so that's not good. But secondly, no, it's not any specific look, it's the exact look of like how most people would look.
Exactly. Like you're not trying to be like, I'm sorry,
no, go ahead.
Like you're not trying to be like invisible, like something. Your goal is to be someone that like no one would pay attention to. Like people would like notice you and then move on immediately and not like register. Like the way like when you're walking around and you see like someone in a basic fuckboy outfit, you just kind of notice them and your eyes glaze over and then you continue because like you clock the stereotype and then move on.
Exactly.
And like there's also a thing about how you walk as well and your gait as well, right?
Oh, people do. They are using like, as well as facial recognition stuff, gait recognition is a developing software. But I just wanted to say, like, I, for example, have pink hair, dress very colorfully. If I was going to like a trans rights student protest, I would be Gray Man by default. But if I was going to like an anti-vax protest where it's a bunch of like a lot of them are like young white guys with very like crew cuts, and a lot of them are like roadmen and shit like this, I would stand out like a sore thumb, right? So
the other thing as well is that what you bring with you to a protest or an action can also be used to incriminate you. Like if you're just walking through town and you're on your way to a place and you're wearing full Black Bloc and everything like that, the cops can be like, well, you're getting arrested. Yeah, and they'll be like, well, you have an intention to do something dodgy or whatever like that. So and that's the same with like bringing, like some people show up with like shields and things like that. And that's the other thing, right? Like if you are showing up to, you got to be really careful about where you show up to with things like that, because they're like, okay, well, were you looking at getting in a fight? Were you going there to get in a fight? And there's totally, times when it may be warranted to do that, but you just have to be really careful about kind of like picking your battles with things like that. If it's a situation where they're already, like if the cops are already deploying things like tear gas and all that kind of stuff, you can say that you were justified in doing so. But if you're showing up at like, hour one of the protest and you've got your like, you've got your combat gear or whatever like that.
Your butterfly knife and your hand grenade.
Super soldier.
Yeah, you're kind of making yourself a target very preemptively. Not saying that like, I mean, it depends on the situation, right? Like some protests are always going to kick off and it's always going to be that kind of vibe. But you just have to like exercise some kind of like some kind of self-awareness about what is appropriate to when you should go Antifa super soldier and when and when it's not a good start beheading local businessmen, you know.
Yeah, a great rule to
There's only
always
white
follow.
businessmen, only white ones.
A great rule to always follow is to like not bring anything that you're not able to and willing to ditch in a second.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just drop. You're like it was I was not there this day, but I was watching live streams of what happened. Day 2 of the Respawn protests in Los Angeles. A bunch of people got arrested, and when everyone got arrested, everyone just immediately started dropping their tasers and pepper spray and all their like different personal self-defense measures. They just all just like dropped it and abandoned it. As soon as they get surrounded, they're like, oh well, ditching this now. You have to
There's and
mentality.
Yeah. You can you also like there are things you can do or wear to protect yourself that you could, you know, like argue yourself out of in case, you know, if you had to or whatever. Like you know, like
soup for my family.
If it's something that you can Yeah, exactly. Like things like that, or like things where you say like, well, I know I just had this in my car, like you know, whatever, or like, you know, like one that I've heard about which is super effective is because a lot of people talk about like you know, what can I wear? Like, do I wear like a leather jacket so that if I get hit, then I'm fine or whatever like that? I think something like a leather jacket is fine because you probably wear it anyway. If you show up with actual kind of like, you know, like combat gear, that's probably going to make you a target. But you know, there's other things in between things like you know, like motocross gear, which is like super padded. Sometimes there's like metal pads inside, everything like that. But you can just be like, oh, you know, I was on my way out to the track and to meet my friends. I mean, that's assuming that there is like a local track or something like that. You know, there's like shit like that where it's like you can't, you know, you don't want to just show up in a you know, like that guy that shows, he's like a right-wing dude that shows up in like a Spartan outfit or something like that, or like, you know, just shit like that. I mean, it's like
that typical Proud Boy outfit of like a whole like flak jacket and military gear and just like trying to look as paramilitary as possible.
It's like,
improvisation is always your best friend.
Like they came here to, you know, be peaceful or whatever, but they like came in like a combat bus from like 2 states away with like weapons and like, you know, body armor. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you know.
Yeah. If you want to talk about a real world example we could draw from, the concept of like, I love the soup for my family.
Yeah.
I
will say
love
really
the
quickly.
Wink he does. So good.
I love this guy, but also this is not smart to do an interview where you're talking, where you're wink. Like this could get you killed very easily. Like the cops will target you and like, but also it's done. So it's now that it's done, it's awesome. But it's also
it's a great way to be a meme. It's a terrible way to
terrible for your safety.
Terrible way to live.
But I wanted to say that if you want to draw from a real world example, like the Hong Kong protests is a really good example of mass unarmed resistance. So like this is a concept again. I'll shell it one more time for the stream. How to Blow Up a Pipeline by Andreas Malm. It talks about it like people using the things that are already in their environment, right? So like going to a place and if shit really, really, really kicks off, right? You all saw in all the footage of Hong Kong from, what is it, a couple of years ago now, right? Like people were using traffic cones, people were using like water bottles, right? And this kind of stuff to deal with tear gas grenades and shit like this. Like you don't have to bring in, you know, again, it's like if shit's already going wild or whatever. But if you're going to the start of something and it might kick off, like you don't have to be showing up with anything at all, because if things do kick off, like a lot of the time people improvise in really, really clever ways, again, to defend themselves. Why I brought up the Hong Kong protests is a good example. Because, like, a lot of people came up with absolutely ingenious ways to like protect themselves from the shit that the police were doing.
And this is
I just want to point out, I just googled it really quickly, and so the Soup for My Family guy has like fully been identified. There's like a news story here that like links directly to his Facebook page and everything like that, and it's kind of like
I would never want that attention. And
it makes you a target as well, especially you know, like, so this, you know, like he's like a young like black dude or whatever like that, and it's kind of like, okay, cool, every Proud Boy is gonna know who this dude is now,
and he's so like smarmy about it, which is awesome, but also it's like, come and get me kind of. It's like this attitude, like we were talking earlier about how like we hate cops, we all hate cops here, or at least you should all hate cops here. If not, you should hate cops. But when they're asking you questions and stuff, now's not the time to be like, "Fuck you, pig," because this whole fascists are just 99% ego and like you're just. I don't want to say
you're not gonna do anything by being a hero. You're not gonna win any fucking awards.
It's just gonna put you in fucking harm's way. In for what?
Yeah.
Anyways, so please go ahead. DJ Mule is gonna say something.
Oh boy, ADHD challenge.
All right.
Oh man. God.
If you can't think of it, then I want to mention. If you can't think of it, think about it. Because I want to mention
the Hong Kong thing, right? The Hong Kong thing, really important, right? It's really important to mention that. Because people will just think, especially in the Imperial Corps, people will just be like, oh, well, whatever, it's Hong Kong. It's not like America. No, like the Hong Kong police, like the incredibly brutal, absolutely beat the shit out of protesters, killed protesters, and they would arrest these young people, and the protesters had to get in the habit of saying, I don't want to kill myself when they were getting arrested, like on camera. I don't want to kill myself. I don't want to kill myself. I'm never going to do it, because they were killing them in prison and then saying that they'd kill themselves and stuff. So that's the kind of non-violent ways in the face of something incredibly brutal, still very, very effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point.
Love you, babe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about your ditzy brain.
I'm getting help. I'm getting help soon.
I want to mention that
everybody drink. Neil forgot something.
I want to mention that because Anansi's been talking about, we generally talking about, anonymity, blending in, so on and so forth. Now's a great time to reiterate that you should wear a fucking mask because it's coronavirus, but also it's an extraordinarily convenient reason to cover your face. So when I see anyone at a protest not wearing a fucking mask, what is wrong with you? Wear a fucking mask.
No face, no case is a double entendre.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing, it's all the stuff about just not getting made,
and again, I saw So I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's just so many easy things you can do that anyone can go grab a mask, get a generic hoodie or whatever like that. Maybe you can put duct tape over any logos you got or anything like that. But it's extremely easy, so there's no excuse not to be doing that stuff.
Right, and that's why when I was at those BLM protests, and I remember I was complaining early in this segment about the Rambos or whatever. There are people that during the coronavirus, they would not wear a mask, and they're yelling and making a scene at these protests, and it's just it's a perfect opportunity to cover your face, and there's this machismo that I notice time and time again, that dudes seem to feel like they're pussies or something if they cover their face. Yeah. Fucking cover your face. One, pandemic. As an epidemiologist, I'm gonna say this: cover your fucking face. Masks work. Wear a fucking mask. Oh my God. And over your nose, bitch. Fucking over your nose. What's wrong with you? And two, especially at a protest, come on, it's convenient. It fits. It doesn't make you look suspicious. It makes you look very, very, very regular, very normal. So take advantage of this. Sorry, go ahead.
And the when there was a kind of BLM solidarity, it was a big march over here, and it was actually during one of our lockdown. I think it was the first lockdown period, and so there was a lot of people there was all these right-wing pundits being what are they gonna do? Are they gonna break lockdown to support their precious Black Lives Matter? They're gonna spread coronavirus everywhere, what are the liberals gonna do? Whatever. And it was actually chill. Everyone wore a mask, and there was no transmission whatsoever between everyone. It was totally fine. People wore masks and gloves. And it was chill. And then there's these other anti-vax rallies where they didn't wear masks, and then there's lots of community transmission and stuff. So it's very simple. It's very easy what you have to do.
Yeah, and something similar happened here where when the pandemic started, there was obviously there was a lot of a huge rise in mutual aid and people doing all these different things to help each other, and part of that was providing PPE and hand sanitizer and all that. Those sort of connections that spawned from coronavirus actually ended up influeing what happened during the protests, because people then shifted their goal from we're now we're doing COVID stuff, and we're helping with these protests, and it built into a larger mutual aid sort of network that was able to provide protesters with like protective gear and stuff like that, as well as like doing COVID and that kind of stuff. And that's part of what made the 2020 protests get so big and like last so long, is that these networks were like supply lines, and they were feeding the movement and giving it the ability to have like the kind of momentum where people in Portland could like protest and fight the police for 100 days straight. Could like when you'd have these nightly protests night after night in like multiple cities, and people were like just like in some places like they didn't stop until the end of the year. Like the uprising really didn't end. Like when I think of it historically, I cap it off like after the January 6th insurrection, because the uprising did not end in the summer. Like it continued throughout the whole year for a long time, and it just kind of died out in the media. People were still in the street like with huge things happening.
Yeah, I mean, shit always heats up a lot in the summer. Just people like feel more comfortable to get out and are much more willing to get out, and like it's sunny and whatever. But like, yeah, it's still going on the whole time. You're completely right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing actually. Sorry, I had there was a segue there. It's gone.
Tim's got ADHD now. I've given it to Tim.
Yeah,
oh shit, it's spreading through the host. Oh god.
Oh, that's the new variant.
yeah. Oh yeah, so speaking of like clothing and stuff, we'll be talking about like all that kind of stuff, like what to wear and stuff. Do we want to talk about how to potentially identify cops and other ne'er-do-wells? I saw Anansi had put in some notes, but this is something that like we have.
These notes are awesome, by the way. Fucking great.
Yeah, really
fucking amazing.
Thank you. This is literally just me like going from topic to topic and ranting.
I love it. I feel like I want to like publish this, but not. But you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's great. It's great information.
Has anyone else had any kind of like encounters or any kind of anecdotes about actually kind of encountering any kind of like undercover cops or anything like that? And
well, I will say there was a case in the UK which was this is actually a counter. This is a warning about like overdoing this, because there was a guy who did something which he kind of shouldn't have done, but like basically like there was a banner at a protest against the bill we were talking about earlier, the PCSC bill, which said cops kill. And then at some point in the protest, it got torn down the middle and swapped around, and this guy was holding up the banner so it read kill cops. And loads of people were like, that guy's an undercover cop, fuck that guy, find out who that guy is, hunt that guy down, all over left Twitter. And like
was he just a
wasn't
dumbass?
An undercover cop. He was just a dumbass, and he's now being like fucking prosecuted. I think he's actually being like, I think he might be American or Canadian, and he's been like extradited so he can be tried and all this shit. And honestly, left Twitter did a whole bunch to like draw attention to that guy and help identify that guy. So like, just a warning.
Was it the Boston bomber with Reddit when they like went wild and they were like, it's definitely this, but it's all like, no, it's not really helping anyone.
It's extremely dangerous to like to do that. Like it's been said before, but if people are like trying to identify someone over the internet and people are going like, oh, this is the guy, assume they're wrong at first until you see more evidence, because they can really ruin someone's life doing that.
Oh yeah.
You have to be very careful.
I'm blowing up these images really big in the notes so that Nicole can put them on screen. But do you want to tell us about Anansi? Do you want to tell, or Tim, did you have more before going into that?
I was actually going to mention. Oh, sorry.
I know. I just really quick. I like how Anansi's like, yeah, don't do that. You're gonna like ruin someone's life, and it's so remarkable. Just to say real quick, it's like an enormous distinction between actual like people that actually do the work, are actually out there doing some real shit, and then people that don't, but then spend all of their time and energy trying to tear down people for fun as their job, because they're being a leftist when they do so. I just want to make a fucking note of how scummy those pieces of shit are, how cowardly, and how not part of the fucking revolution they are, in my opinion. They're fucking distracted.
People, I mean, this is part of what we're trying to counter here on Red Planet, isn't it? Like, a lot of people are just sitting around and they have nothing to do, and then they engage in this kind of, just like.
And they probably
culture.
have good intentions, but they're just not prepared for the task. They're not prepared for the task they're trying to accomplish. Like, like OSINT, like open source intelligence, like that kind of work is a lot more complicated than people like make it out to be. You're not just going through someone's Twitter and like making a single connection. Like, you're diving pretty deep into a lot of information to sift through, especially if you're trying to find like a specific person out of like multiple people. It takes too long for a couple people on Twitter to figure out within an hour.
Yeah. Anansi, you said. Oh, sorry. Fuck.
Oh, sorry. The thing I wanted to talk about though is that even though we're going to be talking about like kind of cops in like a protest environment, there's also a thing that has happened. It's happened a bunch of times over here. It's happened in the UK. It's happened in the States, where cops will infiltrate activist groups and stay embedded with them for a long time. And there's been cases. There was one over here that was really bad because the guy embedded himself with a bunch of climate groups for years. There was like a huge expose. There's like been a book written about it and stuff. And he was like literally like forming relationships with people. He was, like sleeping with people, like all this kind of stuff. Like, and he was a cop like this. And this was like went on for like a couple of years or whatever. And there's been a few of them, but this main one I'm thinking of afterwards. They tried to I think it was a bunch of the women that he'd been in relationships over this time tried to actually sue the police, and he ended up getting paid out like something like $50,000 for the emotional trauma of having to be embedded in these groups or whatever. And and there's Mark Kennedy is the other famous one. There's been a bunch of them, and it's a lot of the times you get them like kind of agitating in weird ways. So there was one dude who is still being unidentified, but everyone knows. It's kind of like there's like a bunch of people trying to track down who he is over here, who was really active in a bunch of protests in the early 2000s. There was there was a lot of like youth focused kind of protests on this period, and it was about things like raising the minimum wage for kids and stuff like that. Well, like young adults. And there's a lot of kids like all that worked for fast food restaurants like McDonald's and stuff got together, and then just in general, like a lot of kids were leaving school to kind of take part in these protests. And this guy who was like one of the main organizers, who was like an older guy, would have been in his like 20s. Well, he was older to us, he was getting people to do things like he was like, oh, okay, cool. Like in the way that a teacher would engage with kids, he was like, okay, everyone get ready here. And then, when I say go, we're all going to run down, and we're going to run down to the end of the street. And we're all going to stop there and stuff. And everyone was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but we're all kind of kids. We were like 15, whatever. Like, we just do whatever. And, everyone had their signs and stuff. And then, like on the news that night, there was just like the only footage was like of all these like kids running down the street with their signs and shit like that. And it's like, look, and then like years later when it all came out that this guy was like, like kind of this like undercover op dude or whatever, that had done heaps of other shady shit, again, like being in relationships with activist women and pretending he was someone he wasn't and all this kind of stuff. It was like, oh, that was that guy that was that was telling us to do things and telling, like getting us to do all these things. It's like, this is so fucking like, it's wild. Like, when all the dots connect. But so it's one of those things. It's like, you got to kind of like, you got to look at like a slightly bigger picture, like if you are in, like if you're working with an org or something like that, and there's like someone that is like consistently doing weird shit. Another thing is, like constantly derailing things at meetings, all these things like that.
Where's that tweet about the FBI like guide on how to it's like whatever that was, everything on that list? Where is that? Anyone have that tweet? I know one of you know what I'm talking about. Someone in the chat knows.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
But
please, sorry, go on.
Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff like that as well that goes on where it's like where they're like, you think of like a like maybe like an undercover cop or whatever is going to be like at a protest being like, hey, you should throw a brick through that window or whatever like that. But usually it's like a lot more, like it's a lot trickier than that. Usually they're not going to be so obvious.
Like you mentioned, Mark Kennedy. I put the links there. Nicole's currently looking at the Wikipedia article for him. One of the things that he did when he was infiltrating these environmentalist groups, like he suggested that they go to a power plant and like cut the fences and get inside and all this stuff. And he basically outlined the entire plan to them. And then when they got there, a ton of cops were waiting. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then like the cops started beating the shit out of everybody. So you know, classic.
Yeah, like one of the fastest ways to like, in my opinion, one of the fastest ways to spot someone you should at least be like careful around, if not a little suspicious of, is those people who like out of nowhere suggest really wild and dangerous stuff. Like you guys will be talking about like or doing some kind of like regular protest or demonstration, like making a banner or something, and then this random person will come out with, oh, why don't we insert insane action here?
Yeah.
Like just something like completely off the rails.
Yeah. I was at Anarchist Bookshop like last weekend, and I think I might have mentioned this actually already on. I think I might have mentioned this last week actually, but like they had a guide on like spotting undercover cops who were infiltrating your organization, and a few like pretty handy tips were like, and then these aren't just on their own to just be like that's definitely a cop or whatever, but like, and this isn't at a protest. This is like infiltrating your organization, but like, often cops will, you know, disappear for a long time, you know, for their job, and it is for their job. It's because they're, you know, going out of cover to spend time with their family. They have no backstory. No one's ever met their family. Often they like have money and are really generous with it within the movement. Just like, hey, anybody who needs some, and like, often also like have access to a car. So like if there's someone who like has access to a car who's involved with your actions, like it better be someone who like has a bunch of pre-existing friends and you all know exactly who this guy is, because like if the person who drove you to the action and then a bunch of cops show up turned out to be a fucking cop himself, like that's an absolutely classic way that like that's why cops, undercover cops will be like leading in being generous with giving lift. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, we all fit in the van. That's really cool. Wait, it opens from the outside. Oh shit, where are we going?
One thing that's really shitty, and I don't know, Anansi, how much like exposure you have to like internet, not internet, but like the online left, but not just the online left, but like the work, like the asshole of it, which here welcome. Yeah. Okay. So what's really concerning is that like people that maybe appear like follow these criteria a person that can fulfill the criteria of appearing to be an undercover cop can also just be a shitty sock dem who doesn't understand what the hell they're talking about. And so it's like, I don't know how useful it is to like they've muddied the water so much with their garbage, and it's just I just want to make take a moment to tell everyone that they make everything fucking worse. Okay, they're just making everything fucking more difficult, because now it's like we are surrounded by people that are essentially appear to be undercover cops, and that makes it much more difficult to be able to like find these people. And generally speaking, and so on and so on. Yeah.
I remember. I don't remember. I think it was, but they were talking about like dealing with infiltrators within an organization, and someone asked a question like, what do you do if you think someone is an infiltrator? And the person responded, well, we'll have them peel potatoes. Like we'll make sure that they never have information. Like this is part of why like information security is so important. Making sure that like only people you absolutely trust have certain pieces of information. Even if you absolutely trust someone, even if you absolutely trust someone, do they need to know? Like keeping things on a need to know basis, only among people you trust is one thing that like really can help.
Yeah.
And someone mentioned in the chat as well, like the whole like cop jacketing thing. Like
Fed jacketing.
Yeah. Because like that is a tactic that like an actual Fed can get in there and sow distrust by kind of trying to convince people that someone else in the group might be
that's explicitly like the goal of COINTELPRO as a program was like to make people think that the FBI was everywhere, to make people think that the cops were everywhere, that they're behind everything. And it worked. It worked because it made people like so paranoid. We're accusing each other like, oh, you're a cop, no, you're a cop, no, you're a cop. no one in the room is even a cop. We're just all scared because we've been effectively trained to be scared.
And then essentially, if there is a cop there, then the accusation becomes worthless. It's like
which is like that's how surveillance works. Is like you don't have to have it everywhere. You just have to make people think they're being watched all the time.
Absolutely,
we're going to go over this in a few weeks with Tia, who is like used to work in naval intelligence and has a whole bunch of super useful things to say about OPSEC and InfoSec, but in the context of at a protest, spotting an undercover cop.
We should get back to
Anansi, can you tell us about at a protest what an undercover cop
is like?
Yes.
So I have a little bit of information on that. So cops will join the crowd and try to hide among people. Sometimes they'll do things like they'll hide behind be in the crowd, and they'll shove someone into the police line so the other cops can grab them and drag them back. Sometimes they'll mark out targets for people, or they'll just observe. Sometimes they'll like try to instigate people to do illegal actions. Obviously, one of the first things I do to spot someone as a cop is like look at their shoes, because their shoes will usually give them away. They're wearing like those typical kind of cop boots. Also, like if they're dumb, you'll be able to see their bulletproof vest under their shirt. There's a picture of that that like circulated widely last year. God, time is weird. That circulated in 2020.
Right.
Of like a cop, like you can see his bulletproof vest under his shirt. You can see his handcuffs, and then like you can see he's wearing those like really coppy boots. There's like you can usually tell they're like these big, just cop looking white guys. They kind of share like a vibe and energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like one thing that like working in tattoo shops for years, I've become like a really adept at spotting like the kind of tattoos that cops like. It's like it's different everywhere. Like American cops love certain kind of tattoos, New Zealand cops like other kinds, Australian cops like a different kind. So yeah, it's like fucking wild. And a lot of them will have like straight up like cop tattoos, very visible or whatever.
Yeah.
But they'll try and get like they'll be like, yeah, I'm an anarchist. I've got tattoos. I'm wearing a heavy metal t-shirt or whatever.
Yeah, these guys they're also dumbasses. Like so many cops are just like have no idea.
Oh, they're so dumb.
Yeah, they have no idea what an anarchist even is. They've just been because they're like an 100%. Extension of propaganda. Like, what does propaganda tell you an anarchist is? Like a guy who's wearing all black who's just like, like
I just want to burn it all down, man.
Which is again why like
sucks, man.
which is again why like sock dems just give off cop vibes because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But Anansi, what's the like? You've got like a picture of guys with like a white band on their arm. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Oh yeah. This is a thing.
Oh, is there a picture I can pull up?
Yeah, sometimes they mark their wear some kind of band or something that can like identify.
So they can identify
each other. It's really hard to be able to specifically spot out a cop unless you can like really see to their tattoos. Like you can see their bulletproof vests under their clothes and stuff. Like if you can tell they're wearing their gear. But it's one of those things where you just have to be careful and like be wary of someone if you suspect, because again, like Fed jacketing is a possible issue. Like one of the best things you can do if you can't like explicitly say, oh, this person's a cop, is just keep an eye on them and just like watch what they're doing, watch your distance from them and stuff. Like if you feel like you need to avoid them, like
which
so
is
you can also like look at the way that they are engaging with the crowd as well.
Exactly.
Like, what are they doing? Are they looking at people? Are they kind of like giving them a once over to like like try like are they acting like the Terminator or what?
What's in the guy's back pocket, by the way? Someone mentioned it looks like handcuffs in his back pocket as well.
Yeah, I mentioned he has handcuffs in his back pocket.
You could kind of see the vest. You could kind of see the vest there through the shirt.
Oh, this is the guy you were mentioning. Okay, yeah. There, I can see it now for sure.
Yeah, no. What are you talking about? That's just a chill.
As well,
that's just a chill bro.
Also, he looks like a douchebag.
Chill bro.
That's just a college guy.
It's my lifesavers.
You just come to hang out, guys. What are you talking about?
As someone who used to be
just guys being dudes.
Yeah, like
dude's rock.
It's somebody that used to be like myself. I used to be like a chud. I used to hang out with cops. I dated a cop who is now a Fed. Like I have a lot of like experience like with this type of crowd. There's a certain like certain walk and certain like square off and a certain like douchey
absolutely,
like gap a guy who shops at the Gap but thinks he's like a badass. Like there's a certain like they have a certain like they think they're super fucking awesome, and that is a
they
vibe.
all think they're Captain America.
Yes, yeah. And so this guy is clear. Look how different he looks to everyone else too. I don't think it's like a perfect world, but look at this guy. He sticks out so hard.
No, I mean, can I revisit the gray man for a second? Like all of these clothing are the kind of thing that someone would think is just like blending in because it's just normcore, right? So a lot of people mistakenly think gray man looks like this, but no, that's how you end up looking like a fucking
that's
cop.
how you look like a cop.
Khaki shorts and
exactly.
like a shirt from the Gap. And
similar to
and also regulation haircuts. Well,
yes.
Because you can't. Because the haircut, they can't just like change that up on whenever they want to. You're
and that's
right.
one of the differences between like cops who are infiltrating organizations versus cops who are just at a protest. Because with the case of Mark Kennedy, that dude grew out his hair, he had a big beard, and all this shit for the years and years that he was in the But when you see the picture of him, like his real form, his cop form, like he's got, the regulation haircut and all that shit. That's his kind of how he actually prefers to be because he's a fucking cop. But this is like similar to, this is some experience I have. Similar to spotting cops at protests. Sometimes you should keep an eye on the media. We all know that like there is a rise of like democratized, as in like independent and low budget, like far right media now. People who are like very just kind of InfoWars or whatever. But obviously, like literally InfoWars go up with the microphone that has a little box around that says InfoWars on it. Something that I've noticed a lot at trans rights protests in particular is people who are going up to interview people who, how to put it, like if you watch certain people who are going around with a camera or a microphone or both, and they're talking to people, like you can sometimes, if you just like tail them from a distance, you can sometimes spot somebody who is deliberately trying to pick on people who they think look cringe, basically, like who they are trying to single out to basically make like cringe content off of. And this is a thing where like if there are organizers who you can contact, and that's one of the things, by the way, we mentioned legal observers earlier. If you can find a legal observer, I'm talking UK stuff purely right now, I don't know about anywhere else, but like if you can find a legal observer who'll be wearing like a neon jacket at a protest, they know how to contact the organizers really quickly, and then the organizers know how to contact any kind of security that the protest has. And so if you spot people who are like fash media basically, and you can like I'm saying, you can kind of tell sometimes if somebody's like going deliberately trying to look for like people to make fun of or like make content out of.
This person has blue hair and pronouns.
For real. Then what you should do is like find a legal observer, get them to contact organizers and see if something can be done about it. I've been in the experience, I've been the subject of like upskirting, and like my pictures were published by Andy Ngo after I spoke at the first trans rights protest outside Downing Street, and like the guy who did that was just there with like a couple of like fancy cameras, and he was just going around like and filming and taking pictures, and like people just assumed he was just legit media. Nobody checked who he was. Nobody asked for like ID or a press pass or anything. And I think like on some level, I think that's kind of a failing of the organizers there. But like he was ejected after my speech because people overheard him calling in for like his fascist buddies to come and like basically start shit, like come and fight people. And then they kicked him out. And that's why it's important to have security at protests. But like if people had been kind of checking anyone who's showing up with like media gear right at the start, that guy wouldn't have gotten anything at all. So that's another thing. There's like alongside checking out cops, another helpful thing can be like being wary of media and kind of trying to figure out what their deal is. Counterpoint to that, a lot of the way media works in the modern age is Associated Press. And what Associated Press do is like they just get pictures of everything and then they sell to whoever wants it. And so sometimes, and I have also had this, you'll tail guys around for a little bit and you'll see them interviewing like young, nervous, often disabled trans people or like trans pride or whatever. And you're like, you motherfuckers, like, you know what they're doing. And then they'll turn right around to the most attractive, confident, well-spoken trans person they can find, and they do an interview with them. And what they're actually doing, and I've looked into this, is like they're literally just covering their bases. They're like progressive media will want this interview, and the InfoWars dudes will want to buy this interview off me, so I'll just be able to sell both. For my money, kick that fucking guy out anyway. But like, but like, just being aware of the media is something I kind of tip I'd give.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I said before, cameras are cops.
Yes, absolutely.
Cameras are cops. Just like treat it like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes people advise
there's a way you have to. There's a way you can approach media people if you're not sure. Like talk to them politely and ask questions and say like, okay, well, like I don't want to be on camera. Like this isn't something that should be recorded. Like you can politely relay that information to them. And sometimes people don't, and it becomes like an issue when it doesn't have to. But there is a need for people to discern like when is this situation where this camera needs to be.
Yeah.
This is someone that's putting people in danger, and it very much can become a threat to people's like life and people's
To piggyback off of what you're saying, that cameras are cops. My experience with Andy is that I was at a BLM protest, streaming a lot of the speeches that were being given, and it was really fantastic. Like I learned a lot. These are great speeches on like whiteness and all sorts of things that a fascist would find an opportunity. I think is really good to hear, but also a fascist can easily spin as some sort of like anti-white hate stuff.
Yeah.
And so Andy took my stream and then tweeted out a clip, and that was, you use that to propagate some fascist agenda. Now I don't know if the right answer is in that situation, but because I don't know if that means that we no longer broadcast this type of thing anywhere. Like no faces were being exposed, people's faces were covered, but people were giving like speeches, and they were really great in my opinion. But also that fascists will take any opportunity to use that footage in whatever way, whether they're taking the footage or they're purchasing the footage, or they're co-opting taking someone else's like an anti-fascist footage and then being like, well, this is hilarious, I can get my fascist buddies to hate this. So again, I don't know what the solution is, but just sucks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one more quick tip is just like I've heard people say before, if you are kind of like a known person online, so like this is a tip, just if you basically are a little more identifiable than other people, another reason to be aware of the media is just that like if you can just position yourself behind the line of the media, like often people who are a little bit more recognizable will literally just travel with whatever media people there are, because then you can just be behind the camera. Like you can just make sure that you're not the one being photographed if you're on this side, because like again, like if you're more recognizable, a photograph getting taken of you at a protest is a bigger deal, because it'll just be way faster for cops or whoever to like link you up at being at a protest.
Someone was saying in the chat that someone saying in the chat that they're like surely not Unicorn Riot being like, what do we think about that? Are we all
I have no opinion. I thought they were all right, but maybe I'm about to get schooled.
Yeah, I've seen like a lot of their stuff over the years. I don't know anything about who runs it or anything like that, but I think their claim is like basically being like their kind of independent, like lefty radical kind of news source, right? So I would I don't know, like I don't have an opinion formed or whatever. I've seen some of their stuff that it looked really good, like but I just think in general people that are like filming a lot of protests and stuff like that, it's I mixed feelings about it, because sometimes you definitely want to have people there to see stuff, but then other times I'm kind of like, is it really necessary? There's like a lot of people here with their faces and all this kind of stuff. It depends on what it is, really. Like, I think it's like, I mean, like, it's something that you got to have a lot of nuance with things like this, right? Like, I think there's probably like, and actually, I've seen stuff that's done outside of filming protests that has been like really good practice and stuff. But still, if I saw anyone at an action or a protest with a camera, I wouldn't be that keen to be in front of it.
Yeah, that's something I really regret is streaming any of that. I know better now.
And it's why like, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
You go.
Yeah, and it's why like your personal dress and everything you should be very careful and conscious of, because like you never know when a camera might be recording. So like maybe you want to kind of make it a priority to always be a little unrecognizable, to always be a little like have the ability to duck away if you need to.
Yeah.
Because you never know who's recording or when.
I just saw Jay Downs in the chat saying that Unicorn Riot hacked and obtained 400 gigabytes worth of intel from the white supremacist group Patriot Front, which is like that's very base. Like that's really
extremely
good,
base. Yeah.
Kind of shit.
Yeah, they're doing good journalism, but just like if they are showing up to something, it is just a thing. Like it's just like the cameras a cops thing is just like the best way you can apply it, and it's just basically like they can be doing good journalism, but you wouldn't want them to show up to certain things, basically.
And also,
I guess it's not always who's recording. It's just the fact that it's being recorded and it can be seen by the people. Like,
thank you.
It can be a journalist that you completely trust, but the cops are still going to be able to get to that footage because they're going to post it somewhere.
Yeah.
So even if this person is like trying to take steps to like not record protesters or like not record protesters' faces, or like do whatever they can to mitigate that, their footage is still itself a risk.
And
even if they have the best intentions.
Thank you for mentioning that, because maybe I should be more specific. When I said Unicorn Riot, I didn't mean the organization and every person in it and their feelings, their intentions.
No.
And,
of course.
And I think we have to start
about, like, filming protests.
We have to humble ourselves to remember that, like, maybe I could do better to communicate, but I also think that people tend to jump to this individualistic, like reputation based, like, I don't know, defense mechanism where if I say this person, what do we think about what this person has done? They think, oh, this person's a good guy and he doesn't have any bad intentions. It's not about that. It's about like the almost like the physical property of what are you putting out into the world. Unicorn Riot can do an amazing job in a lot of ways, but I think it's still important that we should still be able to criticize tactics, even if they're tactics done by comrades with great intentions that do other great things.
Yeah. So Anansi, when I told you I was keen to get you on the show, you said there was something to do with kettling that you thought was unusual that you wanted to actually talk about, and I've been just like itching to have you tell Tim about that, and for me to be able to watch this conversation the whole time. So please tell us about that.
I actually wanted to say earlier, Tim, when I first came on, that I saw your video on kettling. It was really good.
Awesome.
Really, really well made. And it was I was really excited when I watched it because it was like word for word exactly my experience actually having been kettled.
We had some people in the chat saying that they, kind of had the same experience.
I don't know if anyone in the chat or like in this group knows that this happened, like remembers this. But during the 2020 protests, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit.
You're fine.
Sorry, like this story does involve a bit of trauma and it like does kind of difficult to speak. But during the 2020 protests, on August 26th, during a protest in DTLA, a bunch of protesters got trapped by the cops in the 3rd Street tunnel in downtown Los Angeles. And they literally they were marching through the tunnel, and the cops like popped up behind them, and then when they tried to run through the tunnel, they popped on the other side and locked us in. And I don't remember exactly how long we were in there for, but basically exactly how the process you described in the video. They like locked us in. They like tightened up on us to increase pressure. They started beating and shooting people, and like were denying people medical care. And they were doing that whole thing. It got to the point where there was so much panic in the crowd that people ended up getting like trampled. Like I would say like I literally was knocked over and like trampled by people because like the police were pointing their guns at everyone, and people were like backing into the walls, screaming, trying to get away, and it just became this whole thing. And then, like you said in the video, eventually they start letting people go, like slowly over time, releasing the pressure like a kettle, which is I guess where the name comes from. But one of the things that happens during that process that Nigga mentioned in the video, like I don't know if other people who have like talked about kettles talks about this, but like mass systemic like sexual assaults by cops happen when they're releasing people from these kettles because they're searching every single person.
Patting them down.
It got to a point here in LA where like among the protesting community, people kind of know instinctively, or not even instinctively, people talk about this, but they also know instinctively, like if you're trans and you get arrested by LAPD at a protest, like you're going to get assaulted. Like it's going to happen. And I'm like speaking from my own experience, it's happened to me like 3 times at this point. It's just something like you accept is a possibility. But it's like a systemic kind of torture that they're trying to enact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's yeah, I didn't actually mention that in the video. I should have mentioned that. That is something that someone did mention in a YouTube comment afterwards, that that had experience with that as well. Yeah, there was actually a couple of really good YouTube comments afterwards about things that I didn't mention, or like there was a couple things that I kind of cut out because I thought maybe it was too far away. But yeah, that was definitely one of the things that I didn't even think of. Obviously, that's outside of my experience, just being a cis dude. But another one was that which is a really good point, is that actually calling out and yelling out like, "Hey, we're being kettled," or like, "There's a kettle," or something like that, is actually really a bad idea, because that makes people panic, and then people fucking start running,
Yeah,
and then like what happened with like people falling over each other, getting trampled.
yeah.
Because getting trampled isn't like, that's the thing where they're like, "Oh, we didn't hurt these people, whatever, like we just provided the perfect situation for them to hurt, to get hurt," and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like, you think it's all going to be like, the police, like, getting in there with
Yeah.
batons and trying to crack heads or whatever like that, but there's like so much more that is still like assault, still violence and everything.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happens like when that process starts. It leaves like such a notable trauma on a community. Like I remember like for months after the tunnel, like people would get too scared to be like march under an underpass. Like if there was any sort of, if people got into any sort of situation where like ended up on any street where a kettle could possibly happen, the entire crowd collectively would just like freeze and become confused and like not know what to do, because it leaves people, just left people like so scared. Like one of the, like I also have experience with like situations where the police have attempted to start a kettle and then people have actually like managed to stop it or escape it. In a lot of different ways. Like one of the first of all, one of the first ways that people can avoid getting kettled is just to keep moving.
Yeah.
Like there's often I've seen on the ground, there's this conflict where people will want to like stop and occupy an area for an amount of time, just like make noise there and do whatever, or will want to like have approaches where they like come to this one area and they all camp out and they all sit in this one area. But like doing those things invites situations where you're encircled and and like enacted mass violence upon. The best kind of way to avoid that sort of danger and approaches is just to keep moving. Like and especially like moving in unpredictable ways, because a lot of times what's happening is the police are trying to find an optimal point in the march where they can intercept and then start a kettle. That
and if you are heading into a protest, sometimes you'll even see the like where the police have anticipated people will travel, and they'll set up like, even if it's not like a full roadblock, but they'll get ready to be like, okay, if they come up this way, we can quickly deploy this. Like before the BLM march over here, the big one, me and a friend of mine who drove in, we kind of were just looking for somewhere to park up, and we saw a bunch of these streets, and it was like, so if you were walking down Queen Street, the main kind of city central street, you wouldn't see them. But these little kind of, the streets that come off the side, and just around the corner, there'd be like a couple of cops waiting there, or, like just something like that, just, and all around all these little laneways and everything like that. So it's like, they want to, like they are trying to deny these little ways, like these little pathways, these
they're
little
trying to like lead you into a trap.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're like hurting you, kind of. They're trying to hurt you, and that's why like a really like underrated protest role is the scout. Like there's situations where I've seen people the people on skateboards, right, can like skate ahead of the entire march and like be like 3 or 4 streets ahead, and like can see where the police are like on the corner waiting, and then warn people ahead of time, and then people can make like that unpredictable turn and end up somewhere else, and the police aren't aware. It's like that there's that chance, if you're really paying attention and looking for it, to move in such a way that you cannot be encircled, like you're too unpredictable. And that's one of the advantages like people have.
And stuff.
Exactly. That's where knowing your environment really well is extremely important, because you can't do that if you're not paying attention enough to your area where like you know where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Cool.
you have more advantage than people have more advantage than they think because they're on foot and like the cops are like following you in like a convoy of cars.
Yeah.
If you know the area, you can move like in ways that they can't even follow because like they can't go down a certain kind of alleyway or they can't jump a fence or do all these different sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's saying that it's Rinky Dink. Okay, cool. Yeah, Rinky Dink is saying in the 2010s anti-uni fees protests in the UK, they just had to just keep moving, and the average age of the protesters was a lot younger. So there are a lot of older people, pretty dedicated to keeping 11 to 16-year-olds kids not getting killed. And that's the thing because like a lot of the time you'll go to like a march or something like that, and there's gonna be some young kids there. And like a lot of the time they can be like really excited, like what I was talking about earlier. When it's like kids will do like stupid stuff just because they're kids and they're excited and there's like a atmosphere and stuff. So you have to really be looking out for people like that.
Yeah, I remember one night where people marched like 7 to 10 miles in a single night, just walking constantly, just never stopped moving and just like outmaneuvering police lines and stuff the entire time, like just nonstop. It's exhausting, but it is also very impressive to see.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is interesting the way that cops approach tactics, even though like they do really approach it like like kind of like a battle or something like that, but it tends to be very formulaic, like all across the world. Like it's not often that you see anything like groundbreaking. Like there tends to be like a bag of tricks that they've got and they usually stick to it. And aside from that, I think another thing that's really important is actually knowing, and you can look at a lot of the time, you can find out directly from police departments' websites or even just from their media what equipment they actually have. There's like, some of them like they will just brag about like, oh, we have these now or whatever.
Yeah.
Or sometimes people have set up websites to say like, hey, look, the police just got approved funding for buying 10 of these or whatever like that. So aside from the tactics, it's actually really important to know what they bring in with them because like, and this could be anything from like like vehicles to like what kind of like riot gear they've got, what kind of like if they're shooting out tear gas canisters and things like that,
dogs.
or particularly robot dogs, that's the thing now, right? But like knowing like what kind of like tear gas or pepper spray they're using because like obviously there's all these different things, and like a lot of people like there's a lot of people I've seen online talking about like, okay, if you get sprayed, this is what you do, and they'll say like, okay, you got to pour milk in your eyes or something like that. But like a lot of these things, it's very different depending on what what they've sprayed you with, what kind of gas it is, and all this kind of stuff. And like if it's the wrong kind of pepper spray, if you pour milk in your eyes, it's gonna make it worse, and it's gonna permanently blind you.
The best thing to do, never just never use milk at all. Is for one, just like there is no situation that you will ever encounter on the ground where pouring milk on someone is the solution. Always just use regular water, just regular water. Nothing works better than just water. Because like you will mess up someone's eyes pouring milk in their eyes, and even then it doesn't really help that much. And also, it's easier to get water than it is to get milk.
Exactly.
And to like carry around a gallon of milk.
Exactly.
This is maybe an unnecessary derail, but the misconception comes from the fact that spice can be better displaced with milk than water. Because
even that's not exactly true.
Like
even that's
spice on your tongue is like capsaicinoids, and then like milk contains them, and then it displaces the chemicals. But that's not like. Pepper spray isn't just like spices in your eyes. Like, it's not just like spice.
It's just spicy air. That's all it is.
It's like literally like some of the same components in like tear gas.
Yeah, right.
It's more complicated than that.
Exactly.
Like that's why like watching.
I was gonna say Pixel Book has pointed out that milk isn't vegan either. So that's
exactly.
Imagine being in the protest and being like asking someone like, "Oh wait, are you vegan?" Oh shit.
Exactly.
I've got some oat milk instead. Is that? It's
Also,
still milk, right?
Definitely just to derail again, but Baked Alaska absolutely maced himself. Can we just have that on record?
Well, I wanted to say
maced himself. Like,
Oh yeah.
I wanted to say earlier that just remembering people using wrong things to remedy pepper spray. I just had a fond memory of the January 6th insurrection where someone was told that if they put an onion in their eye, it will make pepper spray better. And this shield was like rubbing an onion in her eye. It was the funniest fucking shit. Let me try and find it real quick. I'll give it to the chat.
Been, like, in the meantime, or something.
That's actually also speaking of using wrong things. We brought up the traffic cones on the tear gas canisters before for the Hong Kong thing. There was actually a really good breakdown from Rebecca Watson, Skepchick, about like misinformation that was being shared about what those people did. I'll try and find a link and put it in chat. But basically, a lot of people were sharing a certain like I don't remember the details of it. I'll get a link and then we'll see. But like basically, what people were sharing and saying that Hong Kong protesters had been doing would turn the canister into a bomb, and so she breaks down like what you should do instead and why that was wrong. So worthwhile, like really educating yourself about that stuff.
Yeah, you have to be careful watching some like videos and stuff online trying to give you tips because they can give you some bad information. But every now and then you do see something cool. If I can talk about kettles again for a second, I did actually remember there's a thing I saw one time where as the kettle was forming, in this particular case, the protesters had shields, and as the kettle was forming, they ran up, all the shields ran up, and then formed a wall on the corner of the street before the police could close it off, and then the entire crowd filtered between the shield and the wall, and then escaped onto another street, and then just ran away.
Yeah,
and there's a situation where they were able to like pop the kettle open and like get like right in the cops' faces, form the wall, and then escape. It was just very impressive, like quick thinking. I'd never really seen that happen before. So it was just kind of a cool thing to experience.
Yeah, totally. That's like fast thinking and good teamwork and everything like that.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Really good teamwork.
Like shields are another thing, right? Because showing up with a shield obviously can be used against you as like this is a person that is using like a weapon or whatever, because they'll define weapons.
They can try to hit you with a shield charge. Like here in LA they have a charge specifically for shields.
Oh wow. Okay.
There's like technicalities to it though. Like I've seen some people get around it by like making their shields out of like water bottles and stuff that they've taped together, because the rule's like, if it's made of like a certain kind of cardboard, if it's made of like a certain thickness of wood, then you catch a charge. But if it's not, like, you can get by on it. And then they also don't always tend to stick as charges either. They're just not really sure why, but like it's one of those things where you have to like weigh the risk.
Yeah. We don't have to watch the Rebecca Watson thing now. I was just sharing it so we have the link like around.
Oh yeah, cool. There's also like shields. What happened? There's all different kinds of shields for different things. Like like a shield that might be good in like a when you're like facing off against like riot cops or something like that, might not be the best thing for like deflecting like tear gas or anything like that. Like I've seen videos of people, like a really common shield that a lot of people make is where they cut a big plastic barrel in half, so they've got like a round kind of thing and you just put a handle on the back, which you can just bolt on, just get a handle from like Mitre 10 or whatever and bolt it on the back, super easy. But because it's round like that, really good if you're like bashing against people or whatever, but if a grenade hits into it, it's gonna bounce beside you as opposed to like back, whereas like a flat one, you could kind of like apparently, like I've done this myself. Our cops don't have these, but the trick for flat shields is to angle them slightly up so that they kind of like bounce away or whatever, and they lose momentum by the time they kind of hit the ground. Whereas like if you angle them to the side, they might hit a friend, or you got to be really, really careful about what's happening there.
Yeah.
An underrated option for that is just like a skateboard or a longboard, because like for one, it can offer you more sort of protection than you think. And you also, like, the main thing you're wanting to protect anyway is your face and your head, and that's more than enough to do that. But it also gives you more mobility, because you can like stop and like protect yourself from something if you need to and like skate away.
Yeah.
Or like it gives you more options to kind of fill different roles. You can be scouting ahead and like seeing what's going on, and then also like have something to protect yourself if you get shot at. You know,
can just like pop an ollie and just be
exactly. And then it's also technically not a shield, so you won't catch a shield charge for having.
Speaking of shields, does anyone know if those fucking taser shields ever started being in circulation? Because like the cops were like,
I don't know.
I just want to catch the chat up first. Like, if
I'm not even gonna
know,
lie. I really want one. Just personally for myself, I really want one.
Just so that you can win at laser tag.
Not even to do. I just want to have one, just so I can play with it like a toy.
If the chat don't know about this, the cops, it might even have been LAPD. I saw posting about this, but like, some cop department were boasting about like a patent and a thing in development that was like a taser shield. Memphis shit, which was like it was plastic, but then it's got like metal panels on the front to like tase people. So while they're barging people, they can also like shock them, which is just like, you know, fantastically disgusting cop shit. But somebody pointed out that if you just had like some tang or whatever and you choked it on that like I think the price tag on it was like $2,400, something fucking obscene, would be completely ruined forever, like unfixable if you just put some tang on it. So like just, you know, that's an interesting tidbit in case anybody ever encounters one of those.
Right.
So what Prince Infidel is saying in the chat is right. They're actually something that was invented for prison riots. They've been around for a couple decades, but the ones that were in those videos are just like a particularly modern kind of iteration of the design. And you know, because it's like, so it's the same thing with I think like the whole like rubber bullets thing started with prison riots as well, because for some reason people feel like it's okay to use a lot of these things on prisoners, but then, you know, when like they start bringing them out onto the street to, you know, like to actually use on like well-adjusted members of society or whatever like that, it becomes a whole other thing. Like, I mean, my personal position is that they're fucking horrific to use on absolutely anyone, and that you know, like prisoners deserve better than that. But for some reason, like a lot of people get really shocked, being like, "Oh my god, they're using these on people," you know. But no,
not like
they're around,
the throwaway people, but like the real street, on the street people.
It's that like Mr. Incredible meme where it's like liberals talking about cop violence on everybody else. Liberals talking about cop violence on prisoners. Like it's just like you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But so apparently that they did get a lot of pushback from you know, like the general public or whatever about using those shields in public, and they ended up, you know, kind of not, or maybe probably not getting rid of them, but I can imagine they're probably sitting in a storeroom for a rainy day or something like that. But
waiting for the right psychopath to be like, fuck yeah, let's go, you know.
Yeah, you're looking for the right civil rights issue to, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, like those are a thing, and it's like I think it's important to like remember that, like, you know, these things are still, they still use them. They just use them on people in prisons that you might not see about, you might not hear about or whatever.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And someone else is actually saying, Rob Rousseau, actually, who's in the chat, you know, hi Rob Rousseau, is saying, like a lot of these like rubber bullets and all these like canisters and stuff are supposed to be used by ricocheting off the ground. And that's their way of kind of, you know, like getting around it. You know, let's say like, oh, it's okay that these have like a ridiculous amount of power and can shoot like so fast because we're actually bouncing them off the ground, whereas in real life they're actually not.
Yeah,
but,
of course
you know,
not.
like,
well, yeah.
If they were saying, oh, we're firing them, you know, directly at people or whatever, people would be like, wow, that's really powerful, you know, like you guys should be doing that. But yeah, no, it's absolutely how they get around powering them, making them so powerful.
Right,
I think rationale.
Should probably like so. We should probably get into the homework and all this. So, Anansi, where can people find you before we do that? Before you know, I'm thinking maybe Anansi, you plug your stuff, head off, and then we'll do our homework section because you don't have to be around for that. You know, it's boring.
And also, Anansi, I really want to thank you for coming on.
Cutting out for me a little bit, but I think I heard you say
okay.
like, where can people find me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can hear me right now. But,
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you
okay,
hear us?
cool. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Yeah, you were cutting out for me for a second, but
Okay.
you said where can people find me, right?
Yep.
Yes. I have my YouTube channel, obviously at Anansi's Library, and then I also am on Twitter, also at Anansi's Library. And I just talk about books and different like read materials. Right now, I'm working on a video on George Jackson and the book Blood in My Eye, which I will say is something that I highly recommend for anyone to read. I think it has a lot of really interesting ideas on um urban guerrilla warfare and like just socialism and like different ideas in general. But I think he talks a lot about protest movements in a way that I think is really interesting and in a way that I think is useful for anyone of any kind of tendency. I feel like George Jackson gets a little bit overlooked when it comes to like different forms of theory, but that's just because I'm like emotionally attached to this book. This was one of the first pieces of theory I really got into, and I was reading it during the 2020 protests while a lot of like dangerous stuff was happening, so it kind of was just like hitting emotionally in a really heavy way. But yeah, I highly recommend this book. I'm excited to be working on a video. And yeah, that's me.
Incredible.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, and I wanted
Nicole,
to.
you wanted to? Go on,
Yeah, I
sorry.
just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on to the show. It was really educational. I know for all of us.
Yeah, thank you for having
especially.
me.
And I also wanted to thank you for talking about some traumatic stuff that probably wasn't very easy. And it's especially, I'm very used to talking about things in front of a crowd, and it's still not easy. So I can't imagine how much that like took for you to talk about that stuff. But I appreciate it. And I think I can speak for Chad and say that we all very much appreciate the insight you brought, as well as opening up to us and being vulnerable and sharing with us some of, the not glamorous kind of like traumatic stuff associated with this, because it's important that especially our trans comrades understand this stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad I was able to come on and do that. And I'm probably gonna like just take all my notes and like put them up on my Patreon or something for free for everyone to be able to see, just so that they're somewhere, because I wasn't able to like say everything that I wanted to say, and I wrote a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really great shit too. That'd be I think a lot of people would love that. So
yeah, just so people know, I'll post the link on Twitter when I do it.
Cool, nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think especially like because we didn't cover everything, and if you have like more to say in future, maybe we'll do more episodes on protest tactics, because there just is a lot to discuss actually. So look forward to having you back
I'm always down to come on. And like I'll talk about whatever book I happen to be reading,
nice.
or whatever. But yeah, I really appreciate being able to come on. So thank you.
Nice.
Awesome. We loved having you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, babe.
All right. Well, yeah. So I guess we'll get back down to the four of us, and we can talk about homework, because I don't think Anansi needs to. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't need to be here for that.
Can you pop up a stream? Actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm just gonna.
I can pop up a stream.
Perfect.
Look
at this.
Bisected.
Yeah.
Hey everyone. I'm DJ Mule now.
I actually think
now I'm Sophie again. Hello.
Forgetting about things.
I actually think my friend Nicotine, who is like, no, take it away.
Oh,
don't
sorry.
stream.
Oh my
god. My friend Nicotine is like really good at OBS stuff, and I did a Star Trek role play with her the other day, where she like
it was really cool.
Oh my god, it was the first time I ever tried doing anything remotely like that.
I'm gonna see that.
Oh my god, please. It's just I can't.
What are you, the Vice Admiral of Internal Affairs?
I was Vice Admiral Milka of Internal Affairs, here to perform an audit.
Oh, that's so
Anyways,
good.
So like, but I saw some of like what she was doing, and I was telling her about our problem with this, and she's like, oh yeah, I can help you, because she was doing all this like wild OBS magic, so I think we can fix it. So this might be one of the last times we'll have to deal with this. Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
Cool. Hey chat, who remembers what the homework was last week? Just
give us a 1.
Remember?
Give us a 1 if you remember.
Yeah.
No, I just want to see if they know. Don't. They're just gonna write one.
Yeah,
They're just cheaters.
Just say if you know.
What was the homework?
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
Yeah, I gave him an easy out.
yeah, I know.
I'm
You
sorry.
gotta, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like a triple
yeah.
diamond tier chat hater. Like, I know all their tricks.
The thing is that I just didn't want to see like 10 different things of what it was, and then someone
Because
asked me
then
a
you know
question,
that they're a bunch of hooligans and you need to pay attention.
and then I'll be like, oh yeah, and then someone will ask me a question, and I'll just say what the chat said, like last time, you know.
So I'm going to remind everybody of the history of the homeworks, because I think that they're all good things that anyone can do anytime. And some people won't have been here for previous weeks, and just like hear these steps, and if you feel like doing them, go do them. Week 1, we told people to go join a union, any kind of union, not just a trade union. You could go join a tenants union or a disability union or a trade union, or you could join the IWW if you're not in, if you can't find those unions, you're already in them. Or if you're already in them, you can go and get other people to join unions. And the reason for that is, if there's going to be a big general strike that's going to really affect shit, you need to be in a union to know about that and to take part in it. Week 2, we had Luna Oy on, and we were talking about mutual aid versus charity. And so we said, hey, if you've gone and joined a union, get involved in an action, or look up mutual aid networks in your area and go and join in on an action there. And an action for a union is going to be more like go to a strike thing and protest and blah, blah, blah. So it's a little bit different. Like with a mutual aid thing, it's kind of more chill. You're just like, drive this thing from this place to this place, or help somebody get some food or whatever. Like it's, just do some stuff outside. And people, a lot fewer people did that one, which is okay. And I just want to say that, like, it's okay. Like, the homeworks here are for people to have suggestions about things they can go and do, right? We're not, like, you're not letting anybody down. But I just want to raise that suggestion again. Now, the last week we had Mildred from Thought Slime on, and we talked about hope and remaining hopeful and fighting the black pill. And that's why the homework last week was to imagine a better world. Go around and look at your neighborhood, look at the stuff around you, look at the place you live, and imagine how it would work in your ideal world. And I'm bringing this up again, like I said, because just like, I think it's a good thing to do anytime. Like, I'm not going to keep on repeating these every week, but like, I think those are all good things to do anytime, right? Including the last one, like, just go around and look at a better world. I see some people in chat already saying some stuff that they were like thinking about and imagining, which is really cool and fun. I really like that.
Femboys, as far as the eye can see. That's absolutely.
That was what I was imagining. Yeah,
that's just what I think of on a regular basis. That's not allowed.
Yeah. Popbug said I thought about a lot of infrastructure things because it's been snowy here. That's really nice. Somebody actually, folks, if you're not following the Red Planet Twitter, it's red_planet_TV on Twitter, and somebody, I think, quoted it to say that they did the homework, but they were going through a really tough time, and it helped because they imagined what the response would be to their situation in their ideal world, and that made them feel a bit better. And I think that's a really nice thing to do, because like then you can also try and imagine like how to make that situation for other people. If you're having like a mental health, if you're experiencing poor mental health, right, and you're imagining in an ideal world people would have community and they'd be able to rely on lots of different friends and they'd be close knit, then you think, hey, well, I can make that happen right now. And that's part of the point, isn't it?
So Gayhawk here says, I think I did was talk with my fellow educators about how education would work in an ideal world where standardized testing doesn't exist, etc., and promoted a lot of good talk about imagining a way to meet the challenge of education outside of the restrictions of capital, which sounds great. Like, I always feel like I have so many friends and like followers and stuff who are teachers that are having a lot of these conversations lately. So I think that's really awesome.
I love that. That's so nice. Oh, I'm so into that, honestly.
One of the things I really like about this, exercise is that it's one of the things one of the reasons, say I'm vegan, and the reason is, one of the main reasons is because I think living according to your values or exercising those muscles in your mind is like one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah.
Although sounds very like self-centered and self-centered, and it's certainly not the entire equation. If you think a lot of things, it doesn't really change anything. But I think I don't think you can do the other parts and be like effective actually be like consistently like, I don't know how to put it. I think you can accidentally stumble upon a thing that contributes to the revolution. You know, there's always something like that. But I think living according to your values and keeping your eye on the prize essentially, and kind of living your ideology, although we all have limitations clearly. I think there's something extraordinarily powerful about that transcends any sort of like specific task that I could tell you to do. You know what I mean? Like the momentum of a movement, the passion of a movement, camaraderie, solidarity. These are all things that I don't think you can just like do without those other parts. Like for instance, looking around your world and being like, actually seeing how things can be different. I think that's like such an important thing to do. I remember I have really hard time explaining this, but does everyone get what I'm talking about?
I completely get you, and I think that the mode we're all currently in, just like doom scrolling on Twitter and getting in stupid arguments all the time and wasting our time. Like right, exactly, right. Like when you're talking about like exercising those muscles, Nicole, like those muscles are so atrophied for everybody right now. Like people just don't have.
I don't
those
even realize how hard they're like, how
absolutely
atrophied they are. We're just like, oh yeah, I guess. It makes, I think, a world of difference if you actually like us doing this show took like a lot. I think it took like a really long time for us to get around to it. And one of the things that made this happen is because you, Sophie, convinced me to like have hope in the future. So it was a necessary.
I had to hope pill everybody.
You had to hope pill everyone, and therefore,
not
like
Tim. Tim was already chill, actually. To be fair.
yeah. Tim's already all the things. We know that. Okay. We stop. All right. But yeah, no. I think it's extraordinarily important, and I think some people will kind of undermine how important it is because it's super cool and like masculine to be like, oh man, the world's gonna explode, doomer, and it's far more effeminate or something. Pussy pilled or something to be all like, I have hope and like I think things can get better and I have compassion and I care and shit, like, you know what I mean? The masculine urge to be doomer. Exactly.
Totally.
What kind of person wouldn't want to be pussy pilled?
I pussy pill myself every day, to be fair. Right. But J-Dom said, also can't wait to show this to my new roommates next month who are all activists and organizers who will eat this shit up and spread this far and wide. And that's really fucking cool. And I cannot wait to hear that. And I can't wait to get them in the chat and maybe even on the show if they're doing something really cool and chat about what they're doing. That would be fucking awesome.
Maybe that'll be a homework assignment one week, is that everyone bring a friend to the show next week. That'd be a nice assignment.
I'm into it, honestly.
Touch grass, and then make friends, and then you know.
I mean,
we're not just saying like because we want more viewers in the view count. You can just bring that person to your house if it's safe to do so.
And hang around the monitor together.
As comrades.
But I wanted to say like one more time that homework from last week is an ongoing one, in the same way that if you've joined a union, being in the union is an ongoing one. If you did an action, doing more actions is an ongoing one. Imagining a better world is an ongoing thing. Please just keep doing it, because like we'll bring some of the other stuff around again. We'll be like, go talk to your neighbors, make a community around you, join a union, go to actions. We'll keep on repeating those ones. Like those will be homeworks for future weeks again, but imagining a better world is something that you should try and do all the time, and tell other people to do it as well. Sorry, Tim, I cut you off. I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's really important to think about these things in regards to like your day-to-day life as well. Like, you know, like how would this change or whatever? Because I think that a lot of people have this like idea of like, you know, this like post-revolutionary society that is like, it's almost like a fantasy. Well, I mean, I guess it is a fantasy for a lot of people or whatever, but it seems so far removed from everyday life. Whereas I think like actually considering how your day-to-day things that you take for granted, whether it's like, you know, like public transport or like, you know, things like that, how they would be different or whatever, can actually make it more, I guess, like grounded in real life. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about how a tattoo shop would operate, and you know, under, you know, communist mode or whatever, and which I have like a lot of friends that have tried to set up like little like tattoo co-ops and the various problems that they have, you know, faced on the way and things like that. And it like, you know, it's kind of like, it makes you really consider like, oh well, like this is actually like a thing, right? Like this is like something that we could do, instead of just like some pipe dream of like, you know, like one day down the track when everything's perfect or whatever. It's more like, what can we do like right now? What can we do? What's within our reach, you know? So sorry. But anyway, should we actually get to our real
Tim,
homework?
you came up with the homework this week, so you tell everybody about it.
Yeah, sweet. Well, I mean, this is kind of an easy one, and I think it's like something that isn't just gonna be like, you know, like politically expedient or whatever like that, but also just probably a good thing to do, because we've been talking about, you know, like going out to protests and all that kind of thing. One thing we didn't really go into too much, but I know was in Anansi's notes, which, you know, if you check out their Patreon, you'll probably see them sometime soon, is first aid and stuff like that. And it's something it's always going to be useful, but if you're going out to a protest or whatever like that, you really should be taking a first aid kit and you should know how to use it. So for homework this week, we're saying if you don't have a first aid kit at home, go out and grab one. Learn how to use it. If you already do have one but you don't know how to use it, now's the time to learn. And I think that's like I said, it's going to be good whether or not you're actually, you know, going out to a protest anytime soon. These are things that are going to help you in your day life anyway.
I'll just give a bonus one to that, because sometimes people already have done the thing and then they want extra stuff because they're a little teacher's pet. If you already have a first aid kit and you already know how to use it, your bonus homework can be to print off a bunch of bust cards, right? We talked about bust cards earlier in the show. Print off a ton of them, right? And then another, like we said before, another cool thing that you can do at a protest is just hand them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me get the examples of the bus cards if I have them still saved. We have the ones from the UK, but I'm sure that you can find others. Chat. Here we go.
Right. Yes.
Here we go. Yeah, and sorry, I had to walk away to get a hoodie. Did we do a press one in the chat if you did the homework yet? Did we do one of those?
Yeah, we did that. We did that.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
We did that at the start.
Yeah, a lot of people did it, and they were chatting about what they were imagining. It was
and another thing I wanted to say about homework is that, like, if you're struggling with homework, the ongoing homework, like getting involved in mutual aid networks and stuff like that, be aware that even your boy right here, DJ Forget Stuff All the Time Mule, is struggling to get in touch with his mutual aid network. And I just want to hold my hands up. That's not because I'm forgetting things. That's because the guy who runs it is a bit of a flaky guy, and just doesn't like get back to me. So you're going to experience stuff like that. Don't feel bad about it. It's one of those things. Maybe he's a flaky guy. Maybe he's just really busy. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna have this kind of stuff. So don't beat yourself up. I think it's more important to know that you know what the mutual aid networks in your area are. You know what the unions are that you should be joining, even if you're having a bit of a struggle with it, kind of stuff.
Oh, nice UV pod. Thank you. A bunch of links right there. Thank you so much.
Oh, cool.
Sick.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Is that International Anarchist Federation stuff? It's Indigenous Anarchist Federation, even cooler. Nice one.
Someone's teacher's favorite.
Absolutely they are. I just want to tell everybody, in case people are wondering, I will repost this on the Twitter as well, but the upcoming schedule for the next few weeks are: next week we're going to talk with FD Signifier about Medicare for All, and actually FD Sig did his degree or some kind of thesis on M4A, so it's he's incredibly well qualified.
He's so well qualified.
And as a broader topic, we're going to be talking about non-reformist reforms. Non-reformist reforms. Well, the title of the episode is basically when electoralism doesn't just suck ass.
Okay, I got it here. I got what FD did here. He said, I did my comp exams on Obamacare. Right. Lots of bullets in the holster on the history of the topic of healthcare.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. So we'll be chatting with FD Sig about non-reformist reforms. So when is it worthwhile engaging with electoralism kind of at all? And with the specific example of Medicare for All, the week after that, we're going to be talking with Marina Dove, who is fantastic and very knowledgeable because they studied law about squatting, or as they would put it, adverse possession. The week after that, we're going to be talking with my friend Tia. As I said, used to be in naval intelligence, about OPSEC and InfoSec. So we're covering some of that stuff today when we're talking about security culture. But Tia is insanely knowledgeable about that. So really excited about that episode. The week after that, we've got a presentation from Matilda from the Edinburgh branch of the IWW about how to organize and why you should organize. And then the week after that, we have M from Blood and Turf to tell us about cult research, and in particular, his experience researching Tufts. So it's a jam-packed schedule, and I hope everyone's looking forward to it.
So much.
Oh,
I'm
awesome.
looking forward to it. That's
Me too.
Sure. Yeah.
Very cool.
All right.
All right. Well, chat, can we get a round of applause for the hosts? Also, our I know we already did, but for our guest Anansi, who came on, it was so fan-fucking-tastic. And also, can we for me?
Yeah, for Nicole.
Wow.
Well done,
incredible.
well done.
How does she do it?
Together. How does she do
The
it?
glue that bonds us all. So I've heard this from someone. I'm sure
That's
many people
right.
are.
Many people are saying this.
So I'm gonna back out from this, and then we'll do a full screen with just me. I'll thank the few people that donated, and then we'll wrap things up, and I'll host.
Yeah.
So
So
do we want to do shout outs?
Really quick more note is that lots of people asking us if we can have an audio only version on a podcast. Yes. We've been working on that. There's some technical issues. It'll be up as soon as possible, hopefully by next week. So
follow the Twitter account, twitter.com/red_planet_TV.
That's right.
Cool.
Cool.
But where can people find Tim? That's what I want to know.
So on Twitter is Dread Conquest, on YouTube is Conquest of Dread, and also on Twitch is Conquest of Dread. Easy to find.
Nice.
And what about DJ Mule?
Oh, why, thank you, Tim. My credentials are as follows. You can get me on Twitch, which is just twitch.tv/DJ Mule, as it's spelled underneath me here. On Twitter, just add an underscore to the end of the name. And I'm also on YouTube at DJMU3L. It does come up as DJMU3L Gaming in the shout out. I did used to be a very sad Let's Player back in the day. I will be changing that soon. But yeah, that's where you can find me. What about Sophie from Mars?
Well, I'm Sophie from Mars. I'm on all the platforms as Sophie from Mars, so just check me out there. The most important one is Patreon, because it helps me pay for rent and bills and silly little dresses and drugs. So that's patreon.com/Sophie from Mars, all one word. Check that out, and all the stuff I'm doing, including Cyberpunk 2022, A Direction for the Online Left, will be up there when it's all done. I'm working on a ton of big, exciting stuff that I'm really pumped about. Go check it out.
Cool.
Right.
Okay.
And we all know where to find Nicole, right?
Yeah, I'm over here. Hi, everyone.
Hell yeah.
You know my shit.
Nice.
Yeah, Bad Bunny. Twitch.tv/Bad Bunny. Obviously, you're here right now. But also YouTube, !YouTube, if you want that link. That's also where the Red Planet videos are going to be uploaded, edited to clips, and also the full episodes available there as well. So if you want that shit, that's where you find that shit.
Well, just in case there is an audio upload podcast soon, that's Bad Bunny official clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
But I'm trying to rebrand like yesterday, because it's so hard to find my shit with the name, and it's just like we need to do it. So keep your ears open, chat. Your little cute little chatter ears. Your sweet little ears. All right. Well, thanks, hosts, and
all right.
well, I'll see the three of you next week.
Hell yeah.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone.
Okay,
All
bye.
right, see you later.
you cannot see.